One was a large person, and one was a small person. One was straining her neck to look up, and one was looking down as much as possible. This method allowed them to handle the difference in height and meet eye to eye. After the two exchanged this glance, they both began to laugh. Yufu's giggling was even more melodious than the bells hanging from her head. Gu Huaijiang laughed while shaking his head. Qi-in and Qi-ting were both extremely shocked, staring at the two with their jaws dropped. This situation, was there something funny about it? Gu Huaijiang then turned around and looked at the others. When I was at the border, I had been plotted against by people from Western Kun and ended up being poisoned. There was nobody who could cure it. It was Yu Fu who came out of Immortals Valley and saved my life. Say, if she was a spy sent by Western Kun, rather than not saving me back then, why bother with going through with this effort now? The people in Marquis Gu's manor knew that he had been injured at the border, but they did not know about the situation surrounding it. Upon hearing this now, they finally understood why Gu Huaijiang favored Yu Fu so much. Without Yu Fu, he would not have been able to return to Western Ling alive. Qi-in cast a look of doubt at Qi-ting, then looked at Yu Fu's innocent little face. For a while, he did not know who to trust. Laying on the ground, Qi-ting's heart sank upon hearing those words, as she thought to herself that this was not good. Gu Huaijiang continued, "Did you know that Yu Fu was allowed to move freely in the military camp while I was recovering from my injury? All of the people in the Gu family's military treat her as a life-saving benefactor and don't put up the slightest bit of defense against her, yet you..." His gaze ended up falling on Qi-ting. Just what sort of look was this? He did not deliberately put on a murderous look. He was merely looking at her, yet his gaze was filled with swords pointed at her. Qi-ting suddenly forgot how to breathe and just looked at Gu Huaijiang's eyes in a daze. She felt as though her body no longer belonged to her. After this, it was as though she had entered a freezing cellar, and she began to shiver uncontrollably. With this sort of scenario, there was no need for Yu Fu to say anything. Everyone could see where the problem lay. If what Qi-ting had said was true, why would she feel so guilty that she would begin shaking? This Marquis currently has no time to deal with you. Take her away for now. Yu Fu, I'll be bringing you to the front to see the guests. Gu Huaijiang said this, then grabbed Yu Fu's hand, slowly leading her past Qi-ting. Steward Qi, this is a medicine that will cure the poison. She'll be fine if she takes that. I don't want to prick her, but my clothes and hair were taken care of by Aunt Li and Sister Lianju. I can't make a mess of them and waste their efforts. Qi-in had already been feeling extremely ashamed from what Qi-ting had done, but now that he saw Yu Fu's kindness and heard her explanation, his eyes turned a little red. This old servant thanks young Miss Yu Fu. There's no need for young Miss to feel guilty. As a servant, Yao Hong actually framed young Miss and moved to grab young Miss. She only has herself to blame. He raised his head and saw the two black pills in the palm of Yu Fu's little white hand. He wanted to receive them, but he felt that he had no right to accept them. Yu Fu seemed to notice his embarrassment and squatted down to grab his hand. Without a care in the world, she placed the pills in his hand. She then followed Gu Huaijiang and noisily walked out. Gu Huaijiang walked along while laughing. It's no wonder you don't want to prick her. Aunt Li really did a good job with your clothes and makeup today. You are really beautiful. Really? Yu Fu blinked her large eyes and lifted the pouch hanging at her hip to carefully examine it. Gu Huaijiang saw the pouch and noticed that it was not the one that he had sent, and this aroused his curiosity. Who made this pouch for you? He could tell that Yu Fu really liked this light purple pouch. The swaying reed pattern had a lively feeling that was similar to what Yu Fu gave off. It was eldest brother. There was a faint hint of a smile in Gu Huaijiang's eyes, as he silently nodded. All of the guests had arrived. In truth, it was mostly female guests who had gathered around the two, making it hard for them to get through. Today, Princess Danyang had also come out of the palace, and she spent all of her time cozied up to Gu Shubai, giving him an extreme headache. Helpless, he could only shoot a glance at Gu Hanamo, but the latter simply sat in place with a blank expression. He was not paying much attention to anyone. He understood Gu Shubai's expression, but he was unwilling to deal with guests on his behalf. He could only pass along this look to the nearby Gu Wenqing. Gu Wenqing was currently holding a cup of wine and appeared to be happily chatting with someone who looked like a son from a noble family. Seeing this, he helplessly sighed and had no choice but to go and take care of these officials from court. Fortunately, Gu Huaijiang arrived with Yu Fu just a short while later. Upon seeing Gu Huaijiang personally lead a young girl out, everyone opened their eyes wide in disbelief. They felt as though they were looking at an illusion. The dignified head general of Western Ling, Gu Huaijiang, was the marquis with only one person above him but tens of thousands of people below him. He was decisive and fought in all directions. It was not an exaggeration to say that he held off Western Kuan's ambitions for Eastern Ling on his own. Just the mere mention of his magnificence was enough to make enemies tremble, yet this general was carefully holding a little girl's hand. This truly was too hard to believe. Everyone then turned their attention to Yu Fu at his side, and this made them feel even more shocked. This little girl's skin was as white as snow, and she was currently looking at everyone with a smile. She looked to be no more than 10 years of age. Her large eyes were black yet brilliant. When she smiled, her dimples were as sweet as honey. This truly was a beauty. When she grew up, she would surely be even more beautiful than Marquis Gu's late wife. To be able to give birth to such a beautiful daughter, her birth mother must have been a great beauty. It was no wonder the virtuous Marquis Gu would. As for the clothes that she wore, it is a set of pink, cloud-patterned clothes. They were a magnificent rosy color that made her position in the Marquis manor even more apparent. If she was not Gu Huaijiang's beloved daughter, how could she be able to wear this set of cloud-patterned clothes? Even someone as noble as Princess Danyang was not able to wear them. Is this young Miss Yu Fu? She really is obedient and bright. She really looks like Lord Marquis. She really is worthy of being Lord Marquis' daughter. She is really beautiful. Everyone's praises continued without end. As long as they could curry favor with Gu Huaijiang, they were willing to say all manners of things that they would usually be unwilling to say. Who told this great general and marquis to have more power than all of these officials yet also act as if he was uninvolved in the affairs of this world? To curry favor with him was truly too difficult. Yu Fu listened to the praise and subconsciously wanted to explain her relationship to Gu Huaijiang, but she felt the hand holding hers suddenly tightly a little. She looked up at Gu Huaijiang, and the latter slightly shook his head. With this, Yu Fu lowered her head and slightly bit her lip. When it came time to say something, a girl in court clothes suddenly came over. Uncle Gu, this is younger sister Yu Fu, right? A shadow bore down, and Yu Fu raised her head to look over at who had just come. There, she saw a bright red dress that reached down to the ground, and it was embroidered with a golden thread. Looking up even further, she was of average height, and her waistline seemed to be quite full. Her figure was very curvaceous. Her face was a perfect oval, and her skin was beautiful. Her cheeks were plump, and she was looking at her with a kind smile. What a dignified and noble beauty! Gu Huaijiang smiled while holding Yu Fu's hand. This is the 5th daughter of His Majesty and the 1st Empress, Princess Danyang. Greetings, Princess Danyang. Yu Fu gently curtsied and was about to perform a blessing of fortune, but her hands had already been caught by Princess Danyang. She carefully examined Yu Fu's appearance. The more she looked, the more stunned she became. In the end, she was in a complete daze. Even rarer still, she had just been brought back to the capital by Gu Huaijiang, but she never made a fool of herself despite having met so many nobles and officials. With this bearing, it really was no loss that she was Marquis Gu's daughter, nor was it a loss that she looked at the pink clothes made of cloud-embroidered brocade that Yu Fu wore. Before coming, she had complained to her palace maids that Gu Shubai had never given her such a valuable gift. However, he had given so many to an illegitimate daughter all at once. Now that she saw Yu Fu's pristine appearance, what little jealousy that existed in her heart was instantly extinguished. There's no need to be so distant in how you call me. You're Uncle Gu's daughter. It's fine to just call me Sister Danyang. While Princess Danyang said this, she turned and gave a look to the palace servant accompanying her. When that palace servant saw that her attitude towards Yu Fu was so genial, she quickly came to an understanding. She turned around and retrieved a little box made of sandalwood and decorated with gold thread. With this being our first meeting, this is a tourmaline bracelet that my Empress mother gave me during my childhood. Now that I've grown up, it no longer fits me. Giving them to you, they will likely fit you well. The palace servant opened up the wooden box, and a fiery red appeared. The brilliant and colorful bracelet lay inside. Princess Danyang personally retrieved it and put it on Yu Fu's left wrist. Quite honestly, the fit really was quite nice. Sister Yu Fu's skin is very white, thus wearing red suits you perfectly. How about keeping it on? Princess Danyang looked at her with eyes filled with expectation. The warmth and kindness also showed a desire to get on her good side. She was being even kinder than to her own younger sister. Yu Fu did not know the exact details and did not dare accept it so casually, thus she raised her head and looked up at Gu Huaijiang. He immediately recognized that this bracelet was something that had genuinely been made in the palace, and Princess Danyang's gift had been given with a great deal of sincerity. He then nodded. Princess gave it to you. You should accept it. Seeing his calm expression, Yu Fu finally understood what sort of standing Marquis Gu's manor had in the country. The Empress' firstborn princess called him uncle, and this valuable bracelet was given to a young and illegitimate daughter like her. She had even spoken in such a tone to try and gain her favor for fear that she would not accept it. For a general to reach the same level as Gu Huaijiang, it was absolutely unprecedented, and it would never be replicated. It was no wonder the people of Western Kun would try to assassinate him with poison. Thank you, Sister Danyang. Yu Fu happily accepted, then bowed in a salute. Her little body performed this unfamiliar action and appeared a little jerky. But it was unreasonably cute. She tentatively reached out in hopes of feeling Yu Fu's little cheeks. She wanted to see what exactly her tender and white skin would feel like. Before that hand could reach Yu Fu, many other noble daughters began to run up from behind her. Young Miss Yu Fu, this is my greeting gift to you. Take a look, do you like it? The young girls had beautiful smiles, and they surrounded Yu Fu to rush to give her gifts to try and curry favor with her. Gu Huaijiang had even been pushed to the side. He looked at Yu Fu with a bit of concern, and Yu Fu gave him a reassuring look. She even cleverly winked at him. Gu Huaijiang then returned to his own spot and looked at his 6 sons. There, he found that they were also observing the situation around Yu Fu. This was her first time being surrounded by daughters from noble households in the capital, and nobody knew if she would be able to grow accustomed to it. It just so happened that Marquis Gu's Manos only had sons, and nobody could be with Yu Fu in mingling with that group. This made everyone feel a little uneasy. Not long later, they found that their concern had been unnecessary. Young Miss Yu Fu, the clothes that you're wearing are really beautiful. This is the brocade that the eldest young master brought back from Jinling, right? Within a few moments, everyone's attention had become focused on her clothes. Yu Fu gently smiled, her dimples blossoming. Sister, there's no need to be so courteous. It's fine to just call me Yu Fu. This is indeed the cloud pattern brocade given to me by eldest brother, but I think that the linen silk that sister is wearing is also quite pretty. The girl who had been praised was Lu Rui. She was the daughter of Lu Jin, who was an official in the Ministry of Civil Personnel. It happened that she usually liked to wear linen silk. She heard this and could not help but lower her head and look down at her clothes, as a look of surprise filled her eyes. Sister Yufu, how did you know that I'm currently wearing clothes made of linen silk? Was it not said that this was the general's illegitimate daughter who had just been brought back from some remote area? How could she recognize such a valuable material? Yufu's smile did not change. Linen silk is a famously soft fabric. Not only do people in Eastern Ling know about it, but even I had heard about it in the Immortals Valley. This fabric is most suited to being worn during spring and summer. It's hard to obtain, refreshing, and does not hurt the skin. Lu Rui nodded her head repeatedly. Right. That remote area was called Immortals Valley. Princess Danyang said in shock, Immortals Valley. The Immortals Valley that is deity of medicine Sun Chi's territory. The Immortals Valley that is between Eastern Ling, Western Kun and Northern Li. Yufu's smile turned her eyes into the shape of crescent moons, as she looked up at her. That's right. That is the place. Princess Danyang looked pensive. Marquis Gu had actually hidden his illegitimate daughter in that sort of a secretive place. It was no wonder nobody found out about it after so many years. It really was extremely cunning. Immortals Valley is not a place that normal people can enter as they wish. When I was young, I heard Father Emperor say that when Imperial Grandmother fell severely ill and nearly passed away, it was fortunate that the deity of medicine Sun Chi came and saved her. Later on, Imperial Grandmother lived until the age of 80 before passing away, her body free of illness. Unfortunately, Princess Danyang suddenly became a little crestfallen. Unfortunately, deity of medicine Sun Chi has not come out for over a decade. When Mother Empress fell ill, Father Emperor was unable to invite him in, thus Mother Empress passed away. Hearing her sound so hurt, Yufu was reluctant to say that she was actually a disciple of the deity of medicine. She just gently held her hand. Sister Danyang, don't be sad. Her Highness the Empress is definitely watching you from above and protecting you. Having been comforted by a child much younger than herself in front of so many people, Princess Danyang wiped her face with a bit of embarrassment. It's fine. Let me see the little bells on your head. Who put them on for you? They're really pretty. What caught everyone off guard was that Yufu maintained a calm and gentle bearing while never losing any of her cuteness. The girls gathered around in one spot and began to discuss things like clothes and accessories, and she was even able to get in a few words without saying anything jokingly. In just the span of a conversation, everyone's view of her had changed. Initially, they had believed that even if she was Marquis Gu's daughter, she would definitely be lacking in discipline from having been away for so long and from lacking the upbringing of a young miss. But reality proved that this was not the case. Not only was she very familiar with the clothes and makeup of noble young misses, but when it came time to discuss Confucian philosophies, she had more knowledge than the noble daughters who only knew how to embroider. Everyone was extremely fond of her. In just a few moments, they began treating her warmly like sisters. Today is my first time meeting elder sisters. Through speaking with everyone, Yufu has gained quite a bit of experience. Having been given so many gifts by elder sisters, Yufu is unable to repay this kindness. Would everyone please return to your seats and have a cup of wine? Yufu invited everyone to return to their seats without appearing brusque. This also freed her from being surrounded by everyone. The people were a little reluctant to leave, but there was nothing they could do about it, as Yufu said that she wished to pay respects to Gu Huaijiang. They could only let her go. Finally being able to breathe some fresh air, Yufu rubbed her cute nose then turned around and went to look for Gu Huaijiang. When the girls had gathered around her, the smell of perfume became a little too thick. When she turned around, she saw Gu Xiang and Gu Yi's faces enlarged, as they were directly in front of her. Fifth brother, sixth brother, you two gave me a fright. Yu Fu's little hand patted her chest. It was as if a small rabbit was about to leap out. The twin brothers smiled with bad intentions. Who knew that little Yu Fu would be so amazing, being able to sound so authentic in front of those young misses? If we didn't already know, we might have thought that you grew up in a noble family in the capital. Yu Fu smirked and thought to herself, could it be that only Eastern Ling's capital has so-called noble families? The head general's status is so prestigious. It's natural that I can't lose any face for him. It was fortunate that she was originally quite familiar with those clothes and accessories and did not need to do any homework beforehand. Gu Xiang looked around and saw that there were still quite a few guests looking at Yu Fu and carefully listening to their conversation, thus he pulled Yu Fu to a more secluded area to speak. Little Yu Fu, I feel that you should change how you call father. Have you noticed? All of the guests who came today think that your father's illegitimate daughter. Father has been speaking lovingly, and I figure that he's deliberately leaving people to think this. Thinking about it, father would be very happy if you were to call him father. That would be no good. Yu Fu refused without even considering it. She did not want others to think that she was Gu Huaijiang's illegitimate daughter. Her identity was special. If it brought trouble for Gu Huaijiang or the Marquis Manor, she would not be able to repay them for the kindness that they showed her. Why? Are you afraid that your master will get angry? Gu Yi recalled when Yalan had suddenly appeared at Marquis Gu's manor and what Yu Fu had said at that time. Clearly, deity of medicine Sun Qi had great powers, and his temper seemed to be quite strange. Yu Fu took advantage of this situation and said, "That's right, my master is quite amazing. But at this distance, do you see this dash?" She pointed at the main gate of the manor that was quite far away and squinted her eyes, pretending to take aim. At this distance, my master can flick his poison needles and poison 70 to 80 people. 70 to 80 people. Then wouldn't one be able to take out all infantry? Gu Yi stared blankly in a daze while shaking his head. He did not dare believe what Yu Fu had just said. Yu Fu was merely messing with them. Seeing that she had accomplished her goal, she could not stop herself from sneakily covering her mouth and laughing. She suddenly caught a glimpse of the nearby Gu Jiugu. He was surrounded by noble young misses, and he looked quite striking from a distance. Why do those young misses all like to gather around second brother? In Marquis Gu's manor, Gu Shubai was clearly the heir, and he was the one born with the most handsome features. It was such that even Yu Fu was extremely shocked. She rested her cheeks on her hands and began to search around the crowd to try and catch a glimpse of Gu Shubai. She saw Princess Danyang standing in front of him while shyly speaking with her head slightly lowered. She had just met Princess Danyang and felt that she was a candid and open girl. She was honorable but not restrictive. Who knew that she would look like such a maiden in front of Gu Shubai? Gu Xiang and Gu Yi did not find this scene to be strange, and the two began to explain things to Yu Fu. Because second brother was born handsome, who knows how many have been deceived by that handsome face. He's also adept at making girls happy, and he's able to say all kinds of sweet nothings. Eldest brother is different. Although he was born even more handsome, he has never paid attention to women. Moreover, with Princess Danyang around, how could any young miss from another family dare to try and get close to him? Yu Fu could not help but interject, Princess Danyang doesn't let young misses from other families talk to eldest brother. Princess Danyang has a noble background and is the firstborn daughter of the first empress. Her liking eldest brother is something that almost everyone in the capital knows about. If another family's young miss tried to court eldest brother's favor, she would definitely try to chase them away. In truth, aside from this one thing, she is quite easy to get along with. Yu Fu slowly nodded her head and appeared to be a little disappointed. Gu Xiang could see that her mood was off, thus he laughed and said, "Don't worry. You're different. You're a girl from our family and can speak with whomever you want. Princess Danyang is all too eager to get along with you." Yu Fu naturally knew that Princess Danyang wished to get along with her. She just did not know that she was not only doing it because of Gu Huaijiang's status. She also wanted to become her sister-in-law. Then does eldest brother like Princess Danyang? Gu Xiang and Gu Yi tacitly shook their heads. Eldest brother is the Marquis Manor's heir. Whether it be in status or looks, he can be considered as well matched with Princess Danyang. If he wanted, His Majesty would have sanctioned the marriage long ago. As the Emperor of Eastern Ling, it would be easy for him to compel anyone to do anything, but Marquis Gu's manner was the sole exception. Yu Fu suddenly began to smile after hearing this, as she began to look around the crowd for her other two brothers. In the end, she found Gu Hanamo taking care of guests with a cold expression. It was amazing that the guests had not been scared away by his expression, and they were even talking to him endlessly. Yu Fu covered her mouth and laughed, thinking to herself that this ice block of a person must really dislike speaking with others. Fifth brother, sixth brother, I'm going to go and save third brother. By the time Gu Xiang and Gu Yi thought of asking her, Yu Fu had already begun trotting in Gu Hanmo's direction. Third brother. Gu Hanmo was currently listening to the pot-bellied feudal lord of Wenchang City spout some stereotypical flatteries, and he was extremely bored but could not simply walk away. Suddenly hearing a clear and bell-like voice, it was as though Yu Fu's little figure had descended from the skies. Third brother, I want to go and look for fourth brother. I don't know where he went. Can you bring me to go and look for him? Yu Fu held the hem of his black clothes and looked at him with a harmless expression. Gu Hanmo glanced around the crowd. Sure enough, he did not find Gu Wenqing and did not know where he had gone. Gu Wenqing was a gentle and amiable person. He and Gu Hanmo were truly on opposite ends of the spectrum, and even their names were opposites. One was cold and one was warm, and the names fit the person. Yu Fu usually got along with him extremely well. Now that she could not find him, she must have gotten worried. He hesitated slightly and looked toward the feudal lord in front of him. The feudal lord was currently looking down at the top of Yu Fu's little head and the two little hair buns. Her head was also adorned with jewels and silver bells that chimed clearly with every movement. A kind smile appeared on his aged face. This is young Miss Yu Fu, right? She really is such a sweetheart and really resembles the Lord Marquis. These words were clearly nonsense. Gu Huaijiang was born looking exceedingly like a soldier. He was surrounded in a manly aura, and he was even more awe-inspiring than the cold glint from the tip of a sword. As for Yu Fu, she was born looking gentle and sweet. She was like a secret spring in the mountains that had sakura petals gently floating on the surface. No matter how one looked at it, the two did not look alike. For the sake of getting through the situation, Yu Fu could only acknowledge this. My lord, it may disturb your conversation, but could I first have my third brother accompany me in looking for fourth brother? Yes, of course. The feudal lord laughed while running his fingers through his beard. Go on, young Miss Yu Fu really is adorable and well-mannered. Yu Fu held Gu Hanmo's sleeve and ran out. Only after reaching a place where there were no other people did she let go. Now, third brother doesn't need to accompany those people you don't like for conversations. You can go and train with your sword in the backyard. Yu Fu looked at him with a smile, and she appeared to be quite pleased with her methods. The corners of Gu Hanmo's lips quivered and seemed to reveal a bit of a smile, but he quickly returned to his usual expressionless self. It was no wonder she came to him. It turned out that she was not actually looking for Gu Wenqing. She was just using that as an excuse to get him away. She really was an adorable and understanding girl. Seeing that he did not speak for quite some time, Yu-Fu cautiously said, Then I won't continue bothering third brother. I'll be going back first, hold on. Gu Hanamo reached out and grabbed a hold of her collar, leaving her unable to move. Yu-Fu turned around in shock to look at him. I'll bring you to look for fourth brother. He said this with an expressionless face, then took the lead and walked out. Yu-Fu stayed behind him in a daze. Suddenly coming to a realization, she hastily set off and followed along behind him. Most of the people were gathered for the Dragon Boat Festival's banquet near the front hall. Thinking about it, Gu Wenqing would not have gone too far. Gu Hanamo led Yu-Fu along. Sure enough, they found one of Gu Wenqing's personal servants standing near the stage. Zimi, where's the fourth young sir? Wearing a blue cap and blue clothes, the young servant was watching the actors prepare in the back with relish when he suddenly heard his name called. He turned around and saw Gu Hanamo and Yu-Fu, thus he hurriedly bowed. Third young sir, young Miss Yu-Fu, our young sir is currently backstage. Should I go and call the third young sir over? No need, we'll go in and look for him. There were many performers getting ready backstage. People were moving all over, and it was very packed. Gu Hanamo slightly furrowed his brow and stood in front of Yu-Fu to prevent random people from bumping into her. Yu-Fu hid behind him while excitedly watching the performers put on their makeup. There were colorful faces, white-faced young ladies, and even faces as black as coal. All of the people moving around, including those playing clowns or females, were males. Yu-Fu's appearance aroused quite a bit of curiosity. Yu-Fu looked at them, and they looked at Yu-Fu. Yu-Fu then began to smile sweetly. These people wanted to tease her a little, but when they saw the one leading her, with his cold face and attire, they knew that she was not someone that could be teased so casually. Thus they all lowered their heads, no longer daring to look. Yu-Fu instantly lost interest and looked up at Gu Hanamo, third brother, do they all think that you're ferocious, and that's why they don't dare smile with me? Gu Hanamo slightly furrowed his brow. Actors are of lower standing. If you want to play, you should play with Princess Danyang. There's no need to pay attention to these people. Actors are of lower standing. Yu-Fu thought about what Gu Hanamo had just said in a haze, and a feeling of disagreement arose. As she saw it, in this world, only evil people were of lower standing. When it came to good people, regardless of whether they were in lofty positions or lower positions, none of them could be considered of lower standing. Much less when they decorated their faces so funnily. They were far more interesting than the young misses from large families who could only talk about clothes and accessories. Fourth brother is there. Yu-Fu suddenly noticed Gu Wenqing's figure. He was currently leaning against a railing and chatting with someone. Seeing Gu Hanamo come over with Yu-Fu, he quickly stood up straight, as he started to look a little apprehensive. Upon getting closer, Yu-Fu immediately knew why he looked apprehensive. It was because the person that he had been happily chatting with was one of those actors that Gu Hanamo had described as being of lower standing. That person looked to have a slender build and was dressed up as a female character. Their face had been painted white with a hint of pink, but their delicate features could still be seen. He saw Gu Hanamo and Yu-Fu walk over, thus he politely moved to the side. What are you doing here? Yu-Fu couldn't find you and had me look for you with her. Gu Hanamo said this and sent Yu-Fu in his direction. Gu Wenqing received Yu-Fu, then pointed to the actor over to the side. This is my third brother, Gu Hanamo. Third brother, this is Hua Li Group's top star, Yu Guan. The actor who had been called Yu Guan very politely raised his hands to cup his hands in greeting Gu Hanamo. Every move that was made was done in character, and it had a feminine aura. It was also no wonder, as he usually played a female role. His voice was also a little softer than that of the average man. Gu Hanamo was the stereotypical son of a military family. Usually, he favored training in martial arts, and he really looked down on these feminine men, thus his attitude was a bit arrogant. Gu Wenqing felt a little awkward and gave Yu Guan an apologetic look, and the latter coolly lowered their gaze. He had become accustomed to being flattered and disdained by nobles and officials. Most of those who flattered him had some sort of ulterior motive. He was a mere actor and could not withstand such things. It was better to be disdained. Your makeup was very well done. Did you do it yourself? A slightly naive voice suddenly broke up the awkward atmosphere. Yu Guan looked down in surprise and saw a young girl leaning against Gu Wenqing. She was smiling so much that her eyes had turned into little crescents. Thinking about it, this one must be young Miss Yu Fu, right? Yu Guan squatted down to meet Yu Fu at eye level and looked at her pure eyes. There was not the slightest trace of mockery in them. There was also no wicked ulterior motive. Her praise had come from the bottom of her heart, the bottom of an innocent heart. He smiled sweetly. This humble one is incompetent. My own work is crude. Many thanks, young Miss Yu Fu, for the praise. Yu Fu tilted her head. Her first impression of Yu Guan was quite good. The three left backstage and returned to the front to watch the play. Along the way, Gu Hanamo asked Gu Wenqing a question. What did you go backstage with those actors for? Gu Wenqing knew all along that he did not like feminine men, and he disliked those who played females in plays, even more, thus he did not dare dispute it. I know that Yu Guan. He's a famed actor in the capital, and there are quite a few influential people who have invited their Huali group to perform. Among them, there are some sons of wealthy families who look to try and bully Yu Guan. I happened to have saved him once. Who knew that Steward Qi would end up inviting the Huali group? Because of this, I went to go and chat with him a bit. With things being like this, Gu Hanamo nodded. You saving him is a good thing. It's just that there's no need to get too close with these actors. That will save you from neglecting your status. Yu Fu heard this and raised her head. She could not stop herself from fighting against this. Does third brother do everything so earnestly? Even the great general isn't as strict as you. When we were at the border, he was even amiable with the peddlers and commoners. He never looked down on them for their worse situation. Gu Hanamo had instantly been stumped and did not know how to respond. It was only after a long period of time that he managed to squeeze out 3 words. That is different. What is there that's different? Peddlers and actors performing plays all rely on their own efforts to have food to eat. Gu Wenqing heard what Yu Fu said and felt extremely happy. Well said. Gu Hanamo had never been good at communicating and figured that Yu Fu was still too young and would not understand that there was no shortage of male prostitutes among the actors in Eastern Ling. He had to explain but also felt that he could not talk about such filthy things to such a young girl. He held it in until he was red in the face but did not say a single word. He could only turn around and leave. Seeing Gu Hanmo's parting figure, Yu Fu felt as though she had caused some trouble. Oh no. I finally managed to get a little closer to third brother, but I made him mad again. Fourth brother, what should I do? She raised her head to look up. Not only was Gu Wenqing not worried for her, but he also had a look of joy. Don't worry. Third brother isn't angry. He is bad at communicating and didn't know how to explain it to you. In truth, third brother looking down on those actors is reasonable. The reason behind it is a little hard to explain to you, but Yu Guan is not the type of person that he thinks. Gu Wenqing leaned over and patiently explained to her, then gently rubbed her little face. But what you just said was very good. It really was great. As long as one relies on one's own labor to survive and is doing it in a proper manner, they should not be looked down on. This is also what Father has always taught us. It's no wonder Father likes you so much. Though she was young, she was not completely muddled and ignorant. She knew what was right and what was wrong. Among girls, this was truly hard to come by. His smile was gentle, as he held Yufu's hand and led her back to the front, as the sound of drumming grew more lively. Yufu, come quickly. Gu Shubai had saved her a seat at the table. There were 3 people there, and aside from him and Yufu, it was Gu Jiugu. Based on the seating arrangement, it could be seen just how much importance Gu Huaijiang attached to Yufu. An illegitimate daughter was treated the same as the heir. This was truly something that had never been seen before. Yufu, however, did not understand this. Seeing Gu Shubai welcome her, she happily ran over while the bells on her head rang wildly. Where did 4th brother take you to play? Yufu looked around, and there were quite a few people looking at her. She was worried that it would not be good for Gu Wenqing if she told the truth. We didn't go anywhere to play. We just went for a stroll to see what sort of interesting shows would be put on today. Gu Shubai instantly recognized that she was not telling the truth, but he did not expose this. He just patiently poured her a cup of tea. A nice show will begin shortly. This is a play performed by the Huali group called The Unruly Princess. I specifically requested it for you. Unruly Princess. Yufu's heart skipped a beat, as she almost believed that Gu Shubai had found out about her true identity. It was only after the play began that she understood what Gu Shubai's words truly meant. It was unlike plays like the Peony Pavilion that spoke of love between men and women, or plays that featured being forced to desperate action for family or country, neither of which were suited for children to watch. Gu Jiugu took a glance at Yufu's face and could not help but lift his wine cup and laugh a little. Eldest brother's vision is quite good. Sure enough, you liked this play. It's a pity for the old military men here, as they need to accompany you in watching this play for little girls. The one playing the lead role in this play was Yu Guan. Because Yu Fu had met him before, she was very invested in watching the play on the stage. Yu Fu and Gu Wenqing were roughly the same age and should also be around 17 or 18, yet he did not seem out of place playing a 13-year-old princess. Gu Jiugu's words were what dragged Yu Fu back to reality. She looked away from the stage. Seeing the court officials and military officers watch the young princess act spoiled on the stage while pretending to look very interested and applauding, it was a very humorous scene. Yu Fu instantly burst into laughter. Nobody likes watching it, so why did Huali Group perform this play? Is it not for you? Who in the capital doesn't know that Marquis Gu brought back a daughter? Today's Dragon Boat Festival banquet was also for your sake. Even if it only makes you smile, then putting on this play would have been worth it. Gu Jiugu swirled the wine in his cup then looked up toward the stage. Yu Fu also hurriedly turned around to look over. This play is very good, reward them. Sure enough, Gu Huaijiang was all smiles and ordered Steward Qi to reward the Huali group. After just a few moments, roughly 20 servants came out carrying large baskets, scattering money onto the stage. The loud sound of copper coins splashing onto the stage did not cease, and the smile on the Huali group's boss blossomed beautifully like a flower. The other guests also applauded following this. Even Marquis Gu had said it was good. Then was it possible for it to not be good? Yu Fu covered her mouth, as she was both moved and happy. She and Marquis Gu's manner did not have the slightest blood connection, but everyone, starting with Marquis Gu, treated her like a treasure. This love that she had not experienced for a long time made her heart feel warm. But to have everyone accompany her in watching a play for young children made her feel a little apologetic. Who said that nobody likes watching? Gu Shubai's gaze landed on the stage. His emotions were steady, as he gently said, I feel that it was very good. Gu Joga's hand froze, as he looked over at him while raising his brows slightly. Only after the guests of the Dragon Boat Festival banquet left did the other young sirs hear about the situation with Qi Ting. What? She actually dared to be so bold and frame you for breaking into father's study and tried to grab you? It's no wonder I didn't see head steward Qi at the table and why steward Qi's expression was exceedingly ugly. After the banquet had come to an end, everyone gathered in the main room. When Gu Xiang and Gu Yi heard the news, they exploded. Previously, they had solemnly pledged that there would not be a single person in Marquis Gu's manor who would dislike her. Who knew that they would be slapped in the face so quickly? With this sort of thing happening, why didn't you tell us sooner? Gu Shubai thought back to how Yu Fu spoke and laughed during the banquet. Not the slightest sign of having been framed could be seen. She was still a 12-year-old child. To her, this should have been a huge deal. Yu Fu held a large peach in her hands and nibbled on it like a squirrel. She only put it down after hearing what Gu Shubai said. The head general already knew about it, and nobody believed what Yao Hong said. Earlier, there were so many guests in the manor, and I didn't want to let them find out about any of the manor scandals that might spoil their mood. For a unique existence like Qi Ting, she could not take the place of the other maidservants in the general's manor, nor could they allow her to wipe out all of head steward Qi's hard work. If an outsider found out about this matter, it was possible that it would wind up being denounced by others, even if Qi Yin and Qi Zhou spoke on their behalf. After she finished speaking, she began to nibble on the peach once more. She was completely oblivious to the ripples that she had created in everyone's hearts. Yu Fu was always more understanding than they believed. After they believed that they had found Yu Fu's limit, she would continue to shatter their expectations. That she was so sensible, they were all quite moved. Yu Fu, when you were in Immortals Valley, would you also think about such things? Yu Fu smiled at Gu Huaijiang, and some fresh peach juice leaked out of the corner of her mouth. This made Yaolan quickly come up to wipe her mouth. But of course, Master's personality is extremely impudent, and he always offends people. Although he is very strong and isn't afraid of offending people, there are influences from 3 countries, and Master is just an ordinary person. I don't want him to offend too many people. It was no wonder Sun Qi had quickly sent Yaolan to take care of Yu Fu after she had been brought to Eastern Ling's capital. He had even sent her out with so much money, fearing that Yu Fu would suffer some hardship. If anyone else had such an understanding disciple, would they not take care of her in any way possible? Influences from 3 countries. Could it be that Immortals Valley has some influential people from other countries? Gu Zhougu was sharp and focused on those words. Northernly was fine, as that was the largest and strongest existence of the 3 countries, however, they never invaded the other 2 countries. He wanted to know about Western Kuan. Western Kuan and Eastern Ling had been engaged in continuous conflict, but they stayed away from Northernly. Put simply, they simply did not have the courage to do anything. Yu Fu bit her lip. Very many, there are especially many people from Western Kuan. Master said that Western Kuan is more ambitious than Eastern Ling. They also know just how important medicine and poisons are to a country. As she said this, she looked at Gu Huaijiang, her gaze landing on his abdomen. That was the place where she had gone to work to remove the poison. That's why Western Kuan's people knew how to use Kunlun snow to harm the general, but the Gu family's military doctors didn't have a grasp on how to cure Kunlun snow. This is the difference. Those present were all pillars of Eastern Ling's military. How could they possibly be unable to understand what Yu Fu was reminding them? Though she was not an Eastern Ling person. To be able to reveal this sort of information to them, it could be seen that she already thought of them as family. Gu Zhougu wanted to ask a little more but was stopped by a look from Gu Huaijiang. She was a person from Immortals Valley. In the end, those with Western Kuan's ambition were her fellow disciples. If they asked anything further, they would be forcing her to put them in a bad spot, and Gu Huaijiang did not want to force her. He had brought her back to make her happy, not to use her to do anything. Gu Jiugu understood the situation and shut his mouth. Thinking things through, he had indeed been a bit impetuous and should not have asked so much of Yu Fu. Gu Shubai noticed this and laughed, saying, "We've strayed quite far off topic. What we should be talking about is how should we handle Yao Hong's matter. After all, she is head steward Qi's granddaughter. Dealing with her is easy, but head steward Qi's face is important. In Eastern Ling, all families in the capital with the slightest bit of prestige were old families. Servants that had taken care of the elderly masters would have a bit more weight than the young masters. Just as this matter was brought up, they suddenly heard a male servant come in to report that Qi Yin and Qi Zhou had brought Qi Ting over to acknowledge her guilt. Head steward Qi was at the front, while Qi Zhou dragged a bound Qi Ting behind him. The three walked and then kneeled on the ground. This old servant did poorly in raising this child and raised this sort of a granddaughter, who would dare to frame a master. It is the fault of this old servant. Would Lord Marquis fairly deal with Yao Hong? This old servant definitely does not dare object. Qi Zhou shuffled forward slightly on his knees and respectfully kowtowed toward Gu Huaijiang. Qi Zhou did not do a good job of raising the girl. This failure is the failure of the father. The responsibility for this matter lies with me. Would Lord Marquis punish me as well? Otherwise, Qi Zhou would feel guilty about keeping my position. Qi Ting, who was tightly bound, did not dare raise her head. Thinking about the look with which Gu Huaijiang looked at her caused her entire body to shake, and she could not get a single word out. Gu Huaijiang gave a look, and the two youngest, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi, stood up and went to help Qian and Qi Zhou up. This matter was done by Yao Hong alone. The responsibility is also very clear. It's completely unrelated to you two. Yao Hong, talk about what happened today. There's no need to implicate Steward Qi and Head Steward Qi. Yao Hong's name had been called. Only now did she slowly raise her head and immediately saw Yu Fu. As the head of the house, Gu Huaijiang naturally sat in the main seat. Below him were 2 rows of armchairs. In the past, the 6 sons would sit in them based on their age. But she could clearly see that Yu Fu was sitting in the first seat to his right. That seat should be occupied by the second eldest son, Gu Jiugu. She instantly lost control and shouted, "Why can you sit in that seat? Even if you are Lord Marquis' illegitimate daughter, you can't sit in that seat. Moreover, you aren't. You're just a girl who came out of the wilderness." Qi Ting's loud shout caused Qi Yin and Qi Zhou to freeze in a momentary daze. The two only regained their wits after a short moment. "Yao Hong. What nonsense are you spouting? Young Miss Yu Fu is the benefactor who saved Lord Marquis' life. Is what seat Lord Marquis allowed her to sit in a matter that a maidservant like you can speak on? It's all father's fault for spoiling you too much that made you so disrespectful." Qi Zhou ferociously scolded Yao Hong. He had always been a loving father. Now that he suddenly became strict, it had the opposite effect. She is Lord Marquis' benefactor, so why do all of the young sirs like her so much? Why is that? If it's about status, I am the one who grew up in the Marquis manor. Why is it that I should take care of her and have my name changed to humiliate me? Gu Huaijiang heard a bit and came to an understanding. It turned out that she was plotting against Yu Fu just because she was jealous of her standing in the manor. The sons of Marquis Gu's manor have never been taken care of maidservants. Aside from Gu Jiugu, none had much interaction with girls. This brought about and exposed Qi Ting's jealousy, which they felt was very dirty and unseemly. Qian just felt that the face that he had worked so hard for during his life was completely trampled by his own granddaughter. The more you say, the more impudent you are. What's wrong with the young sirs liking their younger sister? You grew up in the Marquis manor, but you were a maidservant. Taking care of the young miss should be considered an honor, so how could it be considered humiliation? Back when I told you to take care of the young miss, weren't you rejoicing? Chi Ting's face turned red, and tears began to flow. Back then, I thought that she was a proper young miss of the Marquis manor. Who knew that she would just be a random girl? Smack! Chi delivered a slap to Chi Ting's face, and her face instantly swole up. It could be seen just how much force had been put into that slap. At the same time, he dropped to his knees with his hands by his side to accept his guilt. Lord Marquis, the situation has been clarified. It was Chi Yao Hong who did not know what was good for her. She neglected her master and had a vicious mindset. Would Lord Marquis deal with her? A drop of water dripped to the ground from his lowered head. Everyone looked at the three with feelings of anger and pity. The pity was for Qian, who had worked diligently in the manor for the majority of his life, and his son, Qi Zhou, who was also quite capable. But the face that the father and son had worked so hard to gain was completely lost by Qi Ting. As for the anger, it was directed at Qi Ting. She had done such a horrid thing, yet she was still unwilling to repent. Gu Huaijiang felt a bit troubled. It was natural that he could no longer tolerate Qi Ting, but flippantly chasing her out and doing damage to his longtime servant's image would be a big problem. If she was kept, what should be done about Yu Fu's face? With this setting precedence, wouldn't everyone in the manor end up bullying Yu Fu? That would definitely not stand. Send her to a hamlet in the countryside. She can be considered as having been spoiled rotten by living in Marquis Manor. Having her gain some experience in the poor countryside would be good for her. Qi Ting suddenly raised her head and wanted to beg Gu Huaijiang for leniency, but had her mouth covered by Qi Zhou. Many thanks, Lord Marquis. Many thanks for Lord Marquis leniency. She had committed quite a grave crime, yet the Lord Marquis had only punished her by sending her to a countryside hamlet. It was already quite lenient. Although it was the countryside, it was still one of the Marquis operations. She was still one of Marquis Gu's manor's maidservants. In the future, she would still be able to return if she mended her ways. Returning to the western wing, Lian Zhu and Lian Bai received them at the entrance to the yard. Seeing Yu Fu return, they were extremely happy. Young Miss is fine, right? We servants heard that young Miss was nearly plotted against by someone today. That's right, young Miss. You weren't hurt, right? Quickly come inside and let us take a look. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yu Fu saw that everyone was getting close to take a look, and she could not help but laugh. I have poison needles hidden on my person. Nobody can get close to me. If you don't believe me, take a look. As she said this, she turned her hand over. Sure enough, there were 4 silver needles between the cracks of her fingers. There was even a wicked glint that came from the tips of the needles. Everyone froze for a moment before involuntarily taking a step back. Yu Fu flicked her wrist once more, and the 4 silver needles actually disappeared. Where did young Miss hide those needles? Everyone had been a bit afraid earlier from hearing that they were poison needles. Seeing that she had magically vanished the needles, they could not suppress their curiosity and began asking away. Yu Fu cheerfully splayed out her fingers. Come and take a look. Anyone who finds them will be rewarded with a crab cake at dinner. The maidservants exchanged a glance and smiled. As expected, they began to search her sleeves while also tickling her. Yu Fu giggled and did her best to get away. This sort of mischief isn't any way to go about things, teasing me just because you can't find it. Haha, spare me. It tickles so much. Yaolan hastily straightened her back and protected Yu Fu behind her. She herself was not the slightest bit afraid of being tickled. Very well, Yao Lan. You've been with the young miss from childhood and must know where young miss hid the needles. Quickly, tell us. The group saw that they were unable to find them on Yufu, thus they turned their eyes on Yao Lan to try and have her sell Yufu out. Yao Lan thought quickly, her round cheeks giving her a very good-natured appearance. She opened her mouth and suddenly blurted out, "Back then, I searched for an entire month before managing to find them. How could I tell you so easily? You would need to give me at least 5 crab cakes." The group messed around for a while, completely dissipating any nervousness that had remained from Yufu nearly being successfully plotted against. They also heard that Qi Ting had been sent to a hamlet in the countryside, nearly causing everyone to applaud with joy. Yao Hong actually dared to do something to harm our master. Sending her away to a hamlet is considered light. She has never been respectful of master while she was in the western wing, but young miss was kind and endured. We have been finding it hard to watch since quite a while ago. Lian Zhu was a bit more satisfied than the others. Who told Qi Ting to always try and exclude her, saying that she was born looking like a fox spirit? She would often want to shoot back and ask if she had ever seen a fox spirit skilled in riding. But Auntie Li had said that they were all taking care of the young miss, thus they should work in harmony. They could not make their master look bad, thus Lian Zhu did not dare act up. Who knew that retribution would come so quickly? Qi Ting had already been chased out of the manor. That's right. She flaunted that she was the head steward's granddaughter and acted arrogantly in the manor. She even dared to be disrespectful towards young miss, much less how excessive she was in front of us. Is young miss not mad? While everyone was cheerfully speaking, they found that Yufu was merely looking out of the window at a spring. She was not replying, and everyone suddenly felt a little strange. Yufu shook her head. What is there to get mad at? There are plenty of people with muddled heads. If you got mad at each and every one of them, you'll never stop being mad. It's fine as long as I know that the head general will handle things fairly. Everything else is unrelated to me. She held a balsam flower between her fingers. While speaking, she gently removed flower petals and released them to be blown into the water. The scarlet petals floated on the clear spring, and Yufu smiled brightly. She then lowered her head and continued removing more petals. Lowering her head, she found that everyone was looking at her in a daze. What are you all looking at me for? Keep chatting. There's no need to be so restrained. I know that you've all been quite frustrated with her. You should vent a little. Don't worry, I won't tell Auntie Li about it. Everyone felt even more that she was the epitome of perfection. Lian Zhu said, "Young miss, are you really only 12 years old?" Ever since Yufu walked into the Gu family's military camp, she had been laughed at by those grown men for being short. At most, she looked to be 10 years old. As a result, she was a little sensitive when age was mentioned, straightening her back with pride. Of course, I'm 12 years old. I haven't lied. Young miss is able to be so broad-minded at just 12 years old. It really makes this servant admire you. If we servants had heard young miss say this sooner, we would not have needed to be mad with Yao Hong for such a long time. Everyone faintly felt as though they were in a dream. They initially thought that Yufu was merely smart and cute, and they had treated her as a child. Who knew that her attitude and vision were not comparable to those of normal young misses from prominent families? Since you have all become so enlightened, tidy up her things for her to take away. They had just been copying Yufu's earnest expression a moment earlier, but now they had bitter expressions. Nobody wanted to go and tidy up Qi Ting's things for her. Leaving Marquis Gu's manor, everyone had seen Yufu and toadied up to Marquis Gu. They were all feeling quite satisfied. After bidding each other farewell, they all returned to their own homes. Young Serene, take care. A middle-aged official spoke with a chuckle and saluted to the young man before ignoring his true feelings and adding, "Send my kind regards to your honored father, Prime Minister Een." Prime Minister Een was a hated official, but his son, Een Shuo, was the exact opposite. In court, he was very well loved by all. Everyone wanted to get along with Een Shuo. As for Prime Minister Een, they could only force themselves to add a few pleasantries. Seemingly without having noticed the forced nature of his words, he replied, "Very well, my lord, take care." When he spoke, his voice was gentle and kind. His eyes were smiling and made others feel at ease. After saying this, he leaned down and entered his sedan. Opening up the folded fan in his hand, a beautiful landscape painting by famed artist Zhang Deqian was revealed. He looked at the painting but appeared to be looking through the painting and was looking at someone else. The distant mountains were emerald green and in picturesque disorder. It was like that little girl whose black and silky smooth hair had been styled into little buns. The green water wound its way around with a beautiful glow. It resembled the way that her eyes moved in that lively fashion, like a young deer running around a misty forest. There were also the sakura trees that lined the river. They perfectly resembled her curving dimples, which were sweet and beautiful as a butterfly. When she ran over while shouting eldest brother, Een Shuo's heart skipped a beat. However, he saw her dive into Gu Shubai at his side. At that moment, he felt a bit jealous of Gu Shubai. As for Gu Shubai, he called her Yufu. Yufu, on a day when the sun breaks through the clouds, two trees provide just meager but luxurious relief. It really was a great name. After a long while, the smell of sandalwood inside the sedan, as his eyes flickered in the mist. Raise the sedan. Did you see the illegitimate daughter of Marquis Gu's manor? In the outer study of the Prime Minister's manor, the innermost room through many passages was where Prime Minister Een worked. The room was not large, and one's attention was drawn to the bookshelves on both sides of the room. All sorts of records were placed there, and they all faced Prime Minister Yin's desk. Atop the rosewood desk, the official documents were folded neatly. The remaining space had a brush holder, an ink slab, and a neat stack of blank paper. Prime Minister Een sat behind the desk in his armchair. Behind him were partially opened windows, and pines and cypresses blocked the sound from outside the windows. I saw her, but as Sun saw it, that little girl did not look like Marquis Gu's illegitimate daughter. Not an illegitimate daughter. Prime Minister Een raised his head. The sharp and eagle-like eyes on his slightly thin face looked particularly striking. With his prominent cheekbones, he had a harsh and merciless look. He and Een Shuo born being completely different. One was strict and demanding, while the other was kind and gentle like jade. Een Shuo recalled the sights that he had seen during the banquet. The reason that he deliberately did not speak with Yu Fu was to avoid arousing Gu Huaijiang's suspicions. However, he had continued to observe Yu Fu from the shadows. He did not miss a single thing. None of her facial features resemble Marquis Gu. Of the 6 sons in Marquis Gu's manor, all of them share some similarities with Marquis Gu. However, there isn't the slightest trace with Yu Fu. Upon hearing him intimately call her Yu Fu, a peculiar feeling appeared in Prime Minister Yin's eyes. It's possible that she resembles her mother and not her father. Just like you and Jiao. Een Shuo shook his head. Didn't father send people to the border to investigate? But have you ever found anything to suggest that Marquis Gu had a mistress? If there was indeed another person, it would have been over a decade. It would be impossible that there wouldn't be any signs of it, right? You mean to say that this Yu Fu is not Gu Huaijiang's daughter? What sort of person would be worth him doting on so much? Prime Minister Een tightly furrowed his brow and snorted. He was extremely dissatisfied with Gu Huaijiang. This Gu Huaijiang has bewitched the divine leader. Relying on his successive military victories, he ended up in a position above all but one. He's even above me, the Prime Minister. I refuse to believe that he's really that amazing and never loses. He must have some sort of secret connect with Western Kuan. Sure, Shua bowed his head and waited for his order. You have a wide circle of acquaintances in court, and you have also visited Marquis Gu's manor. You must get close to this young girl for father to try and find some trace of Gu Huaijiang's collusion with Western Kuan. Yes, son will obey father's instructions. But this matter cannot be rushed. The members of Marquis Gu's family are not stupid. With how they protect Yufu, son cannot act rashly. Father can only patiently wait for a while. The more they pay particular attention to a girl of unclear origin, the more it becomes evident that they have something to feel guilty about. There's no need for you to rush. Father has already been oppressed by Gu Huaijiang for so many years that waiting another year and a bit won't matter. As long as you can find evidence of him colluding with the enemy, father would be content even if I died. Shua exited the study, and his mind was still filled with all of Yufu's facial expressions. He was also very surprised. Even though he had only just met her once, why was it that his mind was filled with thoughts of her? He was even able to clearly remember whether the dot on her forehead was scarlet or dark red. He became dazed from thinking about it, and he only regained his composure after entering the yard and seeing a group of people gathered together. His younger sister had always been like this, shouting all over the manor. This was where she was completely different from him. Elder brother, what's wrong with you? Slim, graceful, and dressed in white, she walked over to him. She had a tall and slender build and was born with a beautiful face capable of attracting the people of the world. It was only someone like Shua, who had seen her grow up as her older brother, who knew what sort of distorted heart existed inside that beautiful exterior. What is off about me? Jiao moved closer and carefully looked him over before revealing a smile filled with bad intentions. Although the days are getting hot, there's no reason for elder brother's face to be so red while walking in the shade, right? His face was red. Shua slightly furrowed his brow and subconsciously refuted it. I only just returned from Marquis Gu's manor. It's natural that it will be hotter in the carriage than it was for you in the manor. As I see it, elder brothers is not a result of the heat. Rather, it's the result of falling in love. Because every time elder brother lies, you furrow your brow. You might be able to hoodwink others, but could it possibly deceive me? Though you and I might not have been born from the same mother, Shua raised his head and coldly looked at her, his eyes filled with a warning look. At the same time, he furrowed his brow even tighter. This time, it was not because he had told a lie. Instead, it was because he truly was unhappy. Jiao hastily bowed and acknowledged her wrongdoing, for she did not dare to truly make Shua angry. It was Jiao who was spouting nonsense. Jiao and elder brother were born from the same mother. Mother gave birth to both of us. Elder brother, don't be angry. Jiao doesn't dare do it again. Go back to your room and continue with embroidery. It's hot outside and not suited for a young miss of a large family to be out and about. Shua had a cold expression and spoke without the slightest bit of emotion. This frightened Jiao into hastily turning around to leave. Seeing the group of maidservants and grannies loudly depart, Shua's mental state slightly improved, but he could not help but recall what Jiao had just said. Fallen in love. What a joke. I, Shua, am a young man. How could I have fallen in love with a 12-year-old child? He spoke to himself, but his voice trailed off toward the end, becoming nothing more than a whisper. Early the next morning, Qi Ting was taken out of the Marquis Manor's side entrance by two strong female servants. An ordinary carriage was waiting outside, and the one driving the carriage was the person responsible for delivering vegetables from the hamlet. They would take advantage of this opportunity to have him bring Chi Ting away. "You two, please wait." Suddenly hearing the sound from the door, the two servants stopped, then saw a short maidservant walk out. Though she was short, her clothes were not normal. They were clothes that only the top maidservant of the Marquis Manor could wear. There were only a few maidservants in the manor, and they all served in the western wing. This one was young and had clothes that were out of the ordinary. It was clear that this one was Yu Fu's personal servant, Yao Lan. "Oh, Miss Yao Lan, why have you personally come out here?" Though she was young, her status was higher than that of a normal servant, thus the two older servants spoke very respectfully. Yao Lan smiled and pointed at the bundle that she was holding. "Our young miss is benevolent," and said that Yao Hong's things needed to be tidied up and brought out to her. It can be considered showing some consideration for their relationship as master and servant. As she said this, she handed it over. Chi Ting was about to go and receive it, however, she was pulled back by the two servants. "The young miss is too benevolent. Instead of keeping these nice clothes and accessories to be rewarded to good servants, why give them to her? Yao Hong is going to a hamlet in the countryside and will only be able to wear coarse clothes. She won't be able to wear them even if they're given to her." Yao Lan noticed the bright looks in their eyes and seemed to have realized something, thus she smiled and said, "You two can take a short break. Let me say a few things to Yao Hong. Her name was changed to go along with mine, thus there is some sort of a bond between us." You're right. "Then Miss Yao Lan, we will go and wait while you chat." After saying this, they quickly departed. While walking, they began to search through the bundle. It seemed as though they were trying to pick out things that were of value. Chi Ting angrily watched this unfold, then fiercely glared at Yao Lan. "You think I want your fake kindness? It would have been better if you hadn't brought me my bundle of stuff. Now that you have, it's going to be taken away by those grannies. It's clear that you've done it deliberately." Yao Lan shot her a fierce look. "I'll tell you that ever since I was young, I beat many male servants while growing up in Immortals Valley. The most severe incident was when I accidentally got poisoned and only recovered after sleeping for 3 days. I am indeed a girl from the wild, but our young miss is not. Lord Marquis might be able to forgive you for your disrespect towards the young miss, but are you not afraid that others might not forgive you?" Chi Ting was frightened by her frightening glare and took a step back. If your young miss isn't a girl from the wild, who could she be?" "I am not afraid. A girl from the wild was lucky to have made Lord Marquis entertained. If it wasn't the case, how could she possibly have any standing in the manor? She's not even as good as me. Stop spouting bullshit here. Based on how you are, do you think that you're worthy of being compared to the young miss? I'll tell you that our young miss status is higher than that of any of the young sirs in the manor. Only Princess Danyang is on her level." As Yao Lan said this, she bit her lip. Were it not for Yu Fu repeatedly telling her that she could not reveal her true identity, she really wanted to let Chi Ting understand what it truly meant to indulge in the wildest of fantasies. Chi Ting froze in place and suddenly looked behind Yao Lan. Yao Lan subconsciously followed her gaze and also looked back. Before her was a tall figure that wore a faint blue robe with clouds embroidered in a golden thread. Yao Lan looked up, and Gu Shubai's exceedingly handsome face appeared before her. This caused her to subconsciously swallow some saliva. It's over. Just now, she had said that only Princess Danyang was worthy of comparison. Could it have all been heard by Gu Shubai? "Greetings, eldest young sir," she could only grit her teeth and salute. However, Gu Shubai acted as though he did not hear what had just been said, looking toward Chi Ting. "It should be time. Why has nobody come to send the carriage back to the hamlet?" The two grannies hastily came out of the corner while wrapping up the bundle that had been thoroughly ransacked and throwing it to Chi Ting. "Eldest young sir, we will send her off immediately." After saying this, they pushed Qi Ting into the carriage. During this, Qi Ting was in a daze from thinking about the earth-shaking revelation from Yaolan. She had said Yu Fu's status was greater than that of all of the young sirs in the manor. Only Princess Danyang was worthy of comparison. Could it be that she was also a princess? That was absolutely impossible. The driver raised his whip and smacked the horse's rear. Only then did Qi Ting regain her composure and hastily poked her head out of the window to plead with Gu Shubai for forgiveness. He had personally come to send her off. He must not want her to leave, right? Eldest young sir, eldest, her head looked like a flag blowing in the wind. Suddenly poking her head out of the window, she saw that Gu Shubai had leaned over to ask Yaolan something. He was not looking at her in the slightest. What about the eldest? Leave quickly, or are you not afraid of having your head split open? The two grannies were happy to kick her while she was down, as they walked up with ferocious expressions on their faces and pushed her head back into the carriage. When Yaolan returned to the western wing, her head was hanging. What is it? Weren't you the one who wanted to go and send the bundle to Yao Hong, saying that you wanted to warn her a little? Could it be that she made you even angrier? Yu Fu was currently playing cat's cradle with the two maidservants, Yin Ling and Yin Shui. The first to make tangle the string would be flicked on the forehead. They were in the middle of the game when she saw Yaolan walk through the entrance with her head down. Yaolan shook her head and made a throat-slicing gesture before rolling her eyes and looking back. Gu Shubai stepped in behind Yaolan with a smile on his face. Eldest brother, you came. When Yu Fu saw him, she tossed away the string that she was holding, and Yin Ling hastily moved to catch it lest it became tangled. She hopped over to him and suddenly recalled what had happened the previous day and felt a little embarrassed. Yesterday, she had been in a panic and said that eldest brother looked the best. This happened to have been heard by Gu Shubai. It really was a shameful matter. Lian Bai heard this from the inside and hurriedly walked out with Zhu Lian to salute to Gu Shubai. This servant will pour some tea for eldest young sir. Yin Ling, Yin Shui, you two go and play outside. There's no need to pour the tea. I have something to say to Yu Fu. You can all leave. Yu Fu froze for a moment, then looked at Yao Lan's strange expression and felt even more that something was off. What exactly had happened? Yao Lan, Yin Ling, and Yin Shui were led outside by Lian Bai, leaving only Gu Shubai and Yu Fu in the room. Eldest brother, please sit if you have something to say. Saying this, she ran over to the table and poured a cup of the chrysanthemum tea that Auntie Li had brewed. She then handed it to him in a small, fine cup. Since eldest brother won't drink tea, just drink this. Auntie Li said that it's getting hot, and it's good for your body to drink some chrysanthemum tea. Gu Shubai looked at her eager little face. She was like a child who had made a mistake and was doing everything possible to make the adults happy. It was extremely entertaining. He could not stop himself from laughing. Drinking some chrysanthemum tea is good. Listening to Gu Xiang and Gu Yi, you especially like pastries like crab cakes. When eating pastries, you must drink a bit more tea to ensure that the heat does not get trapped in your body. Yu Fu obediently nodded. Eldest brother is even worried about such things. It seems that you have not come as a punitive expedition, thus I can be at ease. It was only now that Gu Shubai realized that he should have come as a punitive expedition. He hastily put on a stern expression and looked at Yu Fu with an inquisitive gaze. When I was passing by the side entrance of the backyard, I happened to hear Yao Lan speak with Yao Hong. For the sake of shocking Yao Hong, she revealed your true identity. If it was not for what she had said, I really would never have thought that you would be deceiving us like this. Yu Fu's eyes became wide in an instant. No wonder Yao Lan had that expression just now. What did she say to reveal it? I clearly told her, this is wrong. Yu Fu suddenly covered her mouth and looked at Gu Shubai with her brows slightly furrowed in confusion. Even if her sharp yet puzzled expression was very adorable, he endured and did not allow himself to laugh, maintaining his stern expression. Eldest brother cheated me last time. You clearly knew that fifth and sixth brother had come, but you deliberately asked me about their names. Isn't eldest brother scamming me again this time? Amazing. Gu Shubai raised an eyebrow. He did not think that she would be this smart, growing with just a single setback. Yaolan never said it directly, but she told Yao Hong that your status is even greater than all of us, and only Princess Danyang is comparable. Ever since you entered the manor, we already knew that you were the medical god's disciple. As for your actual identity, we know absolutely nothing. Sure enough, that girl Yaolan did end up causing her trouble. Yu Fu gnashed her teeth and thought about how this was not the time to be blaming Yaolan. The most pressing matter of the moment was to stop Gu Shubai. Eldest brother, everyone has secrets. Could it be that you don't have any? She pitifully looked at Gu Shubai, but the look of having something that could not be said caused Gu Shubai to freeze. Secrets, huh? Perhaps there were. He looked at Yu Fu, her small head, her small lips, and the small silver bells that hung from her hair buns. The secret in his heart was also just as small. This is your secret, but is it one that cannot be told even to me? Yu Fu hesitated for a moment but ended up biting her lip and nodding. Eldest brother, I don't want the head general to tell everyone that I am his illegitimate daughter. It's not just for my master, but it's also because of this secret. Do you trust me? Do you trust that I won't bring you harm? Gu Shubai patted her small head and gave her a reassuring smile. No one would think that you would want to harm us. If you aren't willing to say it, I will act as if I never heard it. This is your little secret, and eldest brother will help keep it for you. Not only did he not ask anything else, but he also said that he would help her keep this secret. Yu Fu blinked a few times, the corners of her eyes slightly wet, as she looked at Gu Shubai with a look of reliance. Thank you, eldest brother. She spoke softly then dove into his embrace, her tiny hands tightly grabbing his clothes. She was unwilling to let go for quite a while. Ever since the Dragon Boat Festival passed, the court officials began to find that they now had another excuse to get close to Marquis Gu. That excuse was Yu Fu. As long as there was a topic related to Yu Fu, Marquis Gu would listen for a little while, especially the officials who had daughters. In this regard, they had a great advantage over those officials without daughters. Lord Marquis, your manor does not have a single wife. It doesn't even have a concubine who can provide support. This is not beneficial to the development of a young miss. After all, she is a daughter, and there is no head wife to take care of her needs. This is definitely inconvenient. After court was dismissed, the officials gathered outside of the imperial court and formed a circle around Gu Huaijiang. All of them then took turns to speak. For once, Gu Huaijiang did not find an excuse to leave. This marquis has been single for so many years. I have 6 sons in Yu Fu, and I do not wish to take a second wife, nor are there plans on taking in a concubine. He ran his fingers through his mustache and spoke slowly. This caused the ones to have spoken earlier to feel a little disheartened. It seemed that Marquis Gu's fondness of Yu Fu was limited to just a bit. He was not even willing to take in a concubine to take care of her. But everyone's ears perked up to listen to what he had to say. My lords also have daughters at home. If you could tell this marquis about how to raise a daughter, it would be good to let me learn a little. What was this? Marquis Gu wished to personally raise his daughter? The people were shocked, and the officials with daughters were the first to react. Raising their hands, they rushed to respond. One person said, Lord Marquis, daughters must learn the 4 arts, and they must be proficient in needlework. These are things that must not be neglected. You need to have a specialized person to come and teach young Miss Yufu. This humble official has a few very skilled embroiderers in my manor. Would Lord Marquis like to meet them? Gu Huaijiang thought for a bit. These old things were truly a pain to deal with, and who knew if Yufu wanted to learn these things. He would go back to the manor and ask her opinion before considering the matter of looking for someone to teach embroidery. This Marquis will keep it in mind. If Yufu wishes, this Marquis will not be reserved and will send someone to your manor to invite them. Very good, Lord Marquis must not be reserved. The one with an embroiderer in his manor happily lowered his head, figuring that this would be a good chance to get connected to Marquis Gu's manor. He had finally made a breakthrough in his career. Another person then said, Lord Marquis, a daughter's body is a little different from a son's. My daughter needs to have a tail of birdnest every day. Lord Marquis may wish to prepare some birdnest or donkey hide gelatin for young Miss Yufu. My home has some donkey hide gelatin brought in by Northernly. If Lord Marquis does not dislike the idea, shall I have someone send it over? Birdnest. Donkey hide gelatin. Gu Huaijiang thought about it. Back when his wife was still alive, she also seemed to be eating these things quite frequently. Ever since his wife passed away, there were only males who liked practicing martial arts. All of them had strong and sturdy bodies, and supplements were very rarely taken. Thinking about it, there would no longer be any such things in the warehouse. Very well, then I will thank you. If Yufu likes eating them, this Marquis will have someone go to Northernly to get more, and an extra portion will be brought for your family's young miss. The person that had spoken instantly rejoiced. To be able to have Marquis Gu be so eager to bring him things, just how glorious a situation was this. Everyone became more and more lively in their discourse, as the officials with daughters began to squeeze forward, while those without daughters could only resent the fact that they had been squeezed out. They all felt great regret. What was the point of having so many sons? They needed to quickly go home and have a daughter. Only like this could they find something to speak about with Marquis Gu. Not far away, Prime Minister Yin saw this scene and let out a snort in disdain. In the time of Tang Xianzong, there was Imperial Consort Yang. Although there were 3,000 beauties in the inner palace, all of his affections were focused on her alone. This made mothers and fathers of the world want to give birth to daughters rather than sons. Now that he, Gu Huaijiang, brought home a daughter of unknown origin, this sort of a grand spectacle has been sparked. It really is outrageous. After the passing of the Dragon Boat Festival, the capital was far more lively than usual. This was especially true at night. Eastern Ling was plentiful, and its lands were fertile. The capital city, Linen, was built on the shore of the Yangtze River and was an abundant region. At night, there would be people who went boating on the river. Enjoying the gentle breeze from the river with a bit of wine and also enjoying the sights from both shores was truly pleasing. Yufu, how about it? Do you want to come with us? Second brother has already reserved a boat and will be going out at night, and there's no need to say anything about how cool it will be. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were doing their best to entice Yufu to try and bring her out to play. Yufu was also very interested, biting her lip while looking at Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Since coming here, I haven't been around the capital. I have also wanted to go and take a look, but the head general said that Marquis Gu's manor is a large tree in the capital and attracts a lot of attention. My identity is not suited to going out. That was in the past. Gu Yi cheerfully said, eldest brother said that the Dragon Boat Festival was for the sake of introducing you to everyone. Now, everyone in the capital knows that you are a young miss of the Marquis Gu manor. Who would possibly dare to cause you trouble? Moreover, you will be going out with us. Don't worry. You guys. Yu-Fu covered her mouth and laughed. Going out with you guys isn't reassuring at all. Head General canes you two quite often to discipline you guys. Going with you guys will only cause trouble. I won't go. Gu Xiang hastily took a step back to distance himself from Gu Yi. It's him who frequently gets punished by father. It's completely unrelated to me. I won't carry that shame with him. Gu Yi shot him a glare. Gu Xiang, you're a little too lacking in loyalty. Father has said that we should be brothers who rely on each other, and that was split and given to each of us. We are only complete when we are together. Now that there is an accusation, you want to bear that burden alone. You're being quite optimistic. Saying this, he leaped forward and wrapped his arm around Gu Xiang's neck, and the two brothers began to wrestle. You twisted my hand, so I'll twist your arm. Neither was willing to spare the other. The two were twins, but there were still differences that could be spotted if one looked closely. Gu Yi looked to be mischievous, but his body was a little bit friendlier than Gu Xiang. He was also shorter than Gu Xiang. Apparently, it was because Madame Marquis was already completely exhausted after giving birth to Gu Xiang that she was nearly unable to give birth to Gu Yi. When the midwife held him, she nearly thought that he was stillborn who only survived by sheer luck. All right, fifth brother, sixth brother, stop fighting. I'll go with you guys. It's just that we need to tell the head general. We will only go if he agrees. When the two heard this, they reached an agreement and let go of each other. Don't worry. With second brother there, father will definitely agree. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi's experiences were that they would need to drag along an older brother if they wanted to go out and play. The best was their eldest brother, Gu Shubai, and the next best was the second brother, Gu Jiugu. In the past 2 years, their third brother, Gu Hanamo, and fourth brother, Gu Wenqing, had also grown up, thus Gu Huaijiang did not feel uneasy about letting them go out. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were the only ones that he still worried about. Yu Fu thought about the sights of linen at night and was filled with expectation. On this night, Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai had gone to visit the army. When night arrived, Yu Fu finished eating dinner then went to wait at the entrance for Gu Jiugu with Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. However, she found that there was a magnificent carriage waiting outside. In the night light, it was a magnificent sight. The outside of the carriage was scarlet and was inlaid at the top with a crown of red gems. At the four corners of the carriage, there were bronze horses and tassels hanging down. The brilliant carriage door was open to reveal the rosin-colored inside of the carriage. The silk curtains gently swayed. It was clear that this carriage was made for a girl to use. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi could not help but feel surprised. Is this our manor's carriage? Marquis Gu's manor was filled with males who trained in martial arts. Whenever anyone went out, they would always ride horses. It was very rare that they would ride in a carriage. Upon seeing this magnificent carriage, they knew that this had been specifically prepared for none other than Yu Fu. Just as the driver was about to respond, they suddenly saw someone slowly riding over from behind them on a claret horse. I specifically ordered to have it prepared for Yu Fu. Yu Fu, do you like the look of it? Yu Fu turned around and looked. To her side, Yalan was looking at the carriage with stars in her eyes. She looked to be itching to climb in. She obediently replied, I like it. Thank you, second brother. Everyone said that Gu Jiugu knew how to make a girl happy. Sure enough, this was the truth. Whether it was the color scheme, the materials, the carvings, or the inlaid gems, all of them were very well coordinated with a girl's beauty. It truly was something that could only be liked. But Yu Fu felt that it was still missing something. What exactly was it? She herself could not say for certain what it was. It's fine as long as you like it. Go ahead and climb in the carriage. We will be setting out shortly. Yalan helped Yu Fu into the carriage. Gu Yi actually climbed in behind her but was pulled back out by Gu Xiang. Have you forgotten that father caned us after we let Yu Fu sleep over with us? Men and women must not touch. This was something that Gu Yi still could not remember. Can we not even ride in the same carriage? Just where do all of these annoying rules come from? Gu Yi mumbled to himself, but he was still afraid of being punished by Gu Huaijiang, thus he obediently followed Gu Xiang and climbed onto a horse. During the trip from the manor to the river, Yu Fu looked out of the window at the various sights in excitement. She was especially interested in the street markets. Gu Jiugu rode next to the carriage. Seeing Yu Fu's eyes light up upon seeing sugar-coated haws being sold, he stopped his horse and bought a couple skewers. Naturally, one was given to Yu Fu, and the other was given to Yalan. He could tell that Yu Fu treated Yalan like a sister. The two had grown up together, and they were extremely close. Yalan saw that she would also be receiving a portion and was extremely happy, receiving the sugar-coated haws. Thank you, second young sir. Saying this, she held the two skewers and compared them. She then handed the slightly larger one to Yu Fu. Yu Fu happily received it and gently bit down. So sweet. The splendid sugar coated the outside of the hawthorn. Biting down, it was a bit crunchy and a bit soft. The crunchiness came from the layer of sugar, and the softness was from the hawthorn. The inside of the carriage was filled with a crunching sound, as the two happily ate. Gu Jiugu heard the sounds coming from inside the carriage and could not stop the corners of his lips from curling up. Just 2 skewers of sugar-coated haws were enough to buy their happiness. Yu Fu was truly too easy to satisfy. It seemed that she still did not realize that she was now a young miss of Marquis Gu's manor. Everyone's love and affection were focused on her alone, and she could have anything that she wanted. What could a mere 2 skewers of sugar-coated haws be worth? Who knew whether or not she would still be so easy to please once she realized this point? We've arrived. Not long later, a shout came from Gui outside. Following this, a gust from the river pushed the curtain open and blew into Yu Fu's face. So cool and refreshing. She hastily climbed out of the carriage, where she was met with the sight of the vast river and the sound of the great waves. The river was lined on both sides with willow trees. Behind the trees, there were people all over, and lanterns illuminated the entire area. Yu Fu could not stop her eyes from widening. The book said that Eastern Ling's capital city of Linen is a beautiful city with hundreds of thousands of families. Seeing it now, it really is not an exaggeration. Gu Xiang looked at her curiously. Yu Fu, I never thought that you had ever read any books at your young age. Yu Fu stuck out her tongue and used her fingers to indicate a small amount. Just a bit. Gu Yi took it seriously and said, even just a bit is very impressive. Our Eastern Ling's people favor girls without talents who are kind. There are many young misses from noble families around your age who can't even read a few characters. Let's not even talk about speaking so eloquently. A few days ago, Father heard what the officials in court had said and thought about bringing in an instructor to teach you how to read and write. Who knew that you already knew how? Although he did not understand what she meant with that poem, he could tell that she was reciting part of a good poem. Gu Jiugu folded his fan and gently it on her head. Yu Fu's literacy might even be on par with you. If you don't study properly from now on and end up being passed by a little girl, we'll see if you feel embarrassed or not. Gui stuck out his tongue. Seeing a boat slowly moving along the river, he hastily changed the topic. Second brother, this is the boat that you reserved, right? It looks so nice. Everyone looked toward the boat and saw that the center of the boat was brightly lit by a lantern. A girl still holding a pipa majestically walked out. Her flowing sleeves were light and graceful, as she saluted everyone from the deck. "Greetings, second young sir, fifth young sir, sixth young sir and young Miss Yufu." Gu Jiugu nodded to her, then turned to look at Yufu. "She is called Yao Yu. She's a dancer but is very good at the pipe. I specifically invited her today to play a lively tune for you. You will definitely like it." Yao Yu extended her hand to help everyone aboard the boat, but Gu Jiugu simply carried Yufu over, which left Yao Yu hanging. She could only go to help Yao Lan. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were both practitioners of martial arts, thus there was no need for anyone to help them. After everyone had boarded, the one steering the boat poked a bamboo pole into the water and slowly moved the boat away from the shore. This was Yufu's first time riding a boat. She was filled with curiosity and continued to peer out of the cabin's small window. In the darkness of the night, the bright moon hung in the sky. Its reflection in the river quietly rippled with the small waves. There were other boats all around. From time to time, the sounds of music or singing could be heard from them. The flickering lights from the candles reflected on the river, making it look as if it was the Milky Way. The river looked as if it was connected to the sky. Gu Jiugu saw that she was interested, thus he changed seats with her. "Come here and take a look. You'll be able to see a little clearer." Saying this, he moved to Yufu's seat next to Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Those two instantly exchanged a shady look. "Every time second brother comes, you sit with Miss Yao Yu. Today, for the day for Yufu, you've neglected Miss Yao Yu. How could this be any good?" As the two said this, they shot glances at Yufu. Yufu sensed something and looked to her side at Yao Yu. Yao Yu's face promptly turned red and slightly lowered her head, however, her eyes continued to look toward Gu Jiugu with affection. Yufu immediately understood. It seemed that Miss Yao Yu was someone who had known Gu Jiugu for a long time. She should be a close friend, thus he often invited Yao Yu out to perform. "What sort of nonsense are you spouting in front of Yufu? Miss Yao Yu and I are close friends. We simply both like wine and music." Saying this, he picked up his wine cup and raised it toward Yao Yu before throwing his head back and downing the wine. Yao Yu also picked up her cup and raised it toward Gu Jiugu. Covering her face with her flowing sleeve, she downed the wine. Yufu, however, clearly saw that there was a faint look of disappointment on her face. Yao Yu is alone in the capital and is eking out a living. If it was not for the second young sir's help, who knows just how badly I would have been bullied by some noble or influential family. Everyone knows that Yao Yu is one of second young sir's people, thus they do not dare come and cause trouble. In Yao Yu's heart, I only view myself as the young sir's servant. That's all. As she said this, she picked up her pipa and stood up. Today was my first time meeting young Miss Yufu, yet Yao Yu did not make considerations to prepare a gift. If young Miss does not dislike the idea, would young Miss please pick a song? Yao Yu was a performer and skilled in idle chatter. She was very good at reading the mood. She could immediately tell that all three of the young men were entirely focused on this young girl. As such, she simply invited Yufu to pick a song. Yufu took a look at her hands. Her fingers were long, slender, and exceptionally graceful. They were not suited to playing imposing songs. Blossoms on a Moonlit River in Spring can be considered an old song. I wonder if Miss Yao Yu knows this song. Yao Yu was slightly startled upon hearing this. Looking at Yufu's expression, she could not help but become a little gentler. Blossoms on a Moonlit River in Spring was a sweet and touching song, yet it did not require much strength to play it, and it also expressed her feelings for Gu Jiugu. Who knew if Yufu had truly chosen it at random or if she had chosen this after seeing through her feelings. Either way, she was grateful. Yao Yu happens to know this song, thus I will begin the performance. Saying this, she took a seat near the rear of the boat. Sitting with her side facing the others, her slender figure holding the pipa made her look even more charming. The graceful music slowly began, beautifully fitting the wonderful river sights. Just as everyone was starting to become immersed in the music, the boat suddenly lurched. Yao Yu was unable to keep a hold of the pipa and fell to the deck. The one closest to her was Gu Jiugu, and everyone thought that he would go to help Yao Yu. Thus Gu Xiang and Gu Yi went to support Yu Fu for fear that she would hit her head. Who could have expected that Gu Jiugu would go to help support Yu Fu first? As a result, Gu Xiang, Gu Yi, and Yao Lan all caught nothing, and they all dispersed. Yao Yu stood up from the deck in a bad state. Her body swayed, and her hair had become a little messy. They then heard someone shout from the outside, "Which girl in that cabin is playing music? This great one will invite that girl to our boat to play a song. We'll pay you 10 times as much in payment." This coarse voice was accompanied by a tone of drunkenness. When they all stepped out to take a look, they found that there was a fat and drunk man, whose face was bright red. The boat that he was standing on had bumped into their boat, causing their boat to sway violently. Seeing Gu Jiugu's group, that person continued to stare perversely at Yao Yu with his chin held high. Because he was completely drunk, he could not recognize that these were the sons of Marquis Gu's manor. Gu Jiugu immediately furrowed his brow, but Yao Yu held his sleeve and shook her head. "Young sir is very well respected, and this matter could be resolved very easily if you spoke up, but Marquis Gu has always hoped that his sons would stay low-key while in the capital. If this matter escalated, I fear that it would not be good for the young sirs. It would be best if Yao Yu made an appearance." Though she was a performer, there had never been anyone who dared to trouble her because of the Gu family's second young sir. Gu Jiugu nodded, and the group took a step back to allow Yao Yu to step forward. "I am Yao Yu. Under second young Sir Gu's instruction, I am currently entertaining some guests. If you do not wish to offend the Marquis Gu's manor, it would be best to quickly leave." A guest next to the drunk man heard what Yao Yu had said and partially sobered up. "That's no good. She's second young Sir Gu's woman. Any guest of second young Sir Gu must be of similar nobility. It would be best if we quickly left." One person began to tug at the drunk man's sleeve while apologizing to Yao Yu. "Apologies, Miss Yao Yu, the night is dark, and we could not see clearly. Our boats colliding was not done intentionally." "What do you mean not intentional?" "This great one did it intentionally." The drunk man refused the kindness and swatted that person's hand away. A few of his subordinates then hopped onto their boat. "Tien, here is a performance of Blossoms on a Moonlit River in Spring. https://www.youtube.com/watch. V = IUWKLZCXT4. Nobody thought that this drunk guy would dare to continue to act so crudely after Gu Jiugu's name had been brought up. As such, they were all a little shocked. Yao Yu stood at the front and was the first to be affected. Gu Jiugu moved his fan in front of her, then pulled her back to shield her behind him. The very normal fan carried an abnormal amount of force, smacking away the hand that had reached to grab Yao Yu. Gu Jiugu's body was steady. Protecting Yao Yu with one hand, he snorted coldly. "Are your filthy hands worthy of touching her?" Upon noticing that he was trained in martial arts, the thugs began to charge at him. In an instant, the boat became packed and swayed from side to side. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi quickly rushed forward to help Gu Jiugu, and the fighting caused the boat to sway even more violently. Those thugs were not particularly skilled. When standing before people who had been trained in martial arts like Gu Jiugu, they basically fell to just a single strike. In the midst of the commotion, water from the river splashed onto the boat. Yu Fu lost her footing and fell over, actually landing in the river. "Oh no, young miss fell in." Gu heard this and knocked over the last two thugs, then immediately leaped into the water to look for Yu Fu. Gu Yi also jumped in. When Gu Xiang moved to also jump in, he was stopped by Yao Lan. "Fifth young sir, it's too dark to see clearly in the water. It would be more beneficial to the other two young sirs to provide directions from above the surface of the water." Gu Xiang thought it over. Yao Yu and Yao Lan could not be left behind with nobody to look after them, thus he could only nod with his brow furrowed. The river had been continuously flowing. Yu Fu's little body was washed away with almost no resistance. When she and Yao Lan were in Immortal's Valley, they had both enjoyed playing around in a small creek. However, she had never learned to swim, nor did she know how to save herself from a river that was flowing so rapidly. She struggled for quite some time, her arms and legs flailing about in the water. There was already quite a bit of water in her mouth and nasal cavity. In the end, she gave up on struggling and allowed herself to lie flat on the surface of the water. This was enough to get her mouth above the surface to breathe. The lanterns on both shores shone brightly, but the boat was getting further and further away. The water all around her was inky black, and who knew what sorts of things were below the surface. "Yu Fu! Where are you? Young Miss Yu Fu!" She faintly heard Gu Jioga's voice, then heard the voice of the servant that had come with them from the manor. She hastily shouted, "I'm here. Second brother, come and save me. I'm right here." Her voice was stifled by the river and the wind, and it could not be heard clearly. Gu Jiogu began to swim in the direction that the faint voice had come from and noticed that he did not seem to be the only one heading in Yu Fu's direction. There were at least 5 to 6 people. Aside from himself, Gu Yi and the servants waiting for them on the shore, there were definitely other people heading in her direction. His expression instantly turned ugly, as he felt that there was something off about tonight's situation. Yu Fu might be in danger. "Yu Fu, where are you?" Yu Fu, who had been swept away by the river, suddenly saw a small vortex in the water. It was caused by a large rock protruding out of the water. She hastily grabbed onto the rock and rested her chin atop it, barely managing to stabilize herself. Even though the 5th month had already begun, she still felt cold from being in the river for such a long time, and a cold sweat covered her forehead. "Second brother, I'm here." The water had entered her eyes, and she did not dare to wipe it out with her hands. Through her blurred vision, she could only see the water rise and fall around her. She could not tell whether it was a large fish or someone who had come to save her. A dark figure rushed straight toward her. Growing closer and closer, Yu Fu could not stop herself from shouting. "Second brother, is that you?" That dark figure, however, did not respond. It just continued to swim in her direction, faster and faster. "Second brother, 5th brother, 6th brother. Is it you guys?" Yu Fu was so anxious that she was on the verge of tears. Why did this dark figure not speak? Was it a person or not? Hearing her voice on the verge of tears, that dark figure paused for a moment, then leaped out of the water and pulled her into an embrace. "You thankless little thing. You only know your second brother and forgot about your eldest brother." He exited the water like a divine figure. His familiar voice was deep and gentle, and the embrace was warm like spring. Yu Fu looked at his face. Seemingly uncertain as to whether or not he truly was Gu Shubai, she suddenly reached out to gently pinch his face. "Eldest brother, how come you're here?" Gu Shubai slightly furrowed his brow and held her a little tighter. "Your hands are so cold. Don't speak. Let's return to the shore first." Holding Yu Fu, he began to swim toward the shore. Yu Fu watched him swim with one hand, yet he was not at all slow. She was in a complete daze. When they were about to reach the shore, she suddenly remembered something. "Eldest brother, second brother, and the others will definitely be looking for me in the water. quickly send someone to tell them. Gu Shubai did not say a word. When they arrived at the shore, there were already a pair of soldiers waiting there to receive Yu Fu. Bring young Miss Yu Fu to the carriage to get changed. You guys, go and get everyone that was in the water, don't forget a single one. This is especially the case for those who jumped into the water to save Yu Fu. I must thank them properly. He received some clothes from a soldier and wiped himself dry while coldly giving orders. Yu Fu was led to the carriage by a soldier while looking back at Gu Shubai in confusion. Why did she feel as though her eldest brother was not truly wanting to thank the others, rather? The carriage was parked right next to the river, and there were clothes that had been prepared inside. After Yu Fu finished changing, she exited the carriage and found that a few more people outside who were soaking wet. Yaolan quickly walked over and used her handkerchief to dry her wet hair. At the same time, she wrapped a cloak around her. Yu Fu looked over at the people who were dripping wet. All of them were wiping away the water with pieces of cloth. When Gu Jiugu and Gu Yi saw that she was safe and sound, they smiled in her direction. There were also two servants who had jumped into the water to search for Yu Fu after hearing Gu Xiang shout. Aside from them, there were two unfamiliar men. Seeing Yu Fu look at them curiously, the one at the front turned around and gave her a kind smile. Young Miss Yu Fu, are you all right? That man looked to be around the same age as Gu Shubai. He was handsome and gentle, and his clothes made it clear that he was not just a son of some normal family. Yu Fu felt that he looked a little familiar. It seemed as though she had seen him before, but she could not remember when that was. Gu Shubai saw this, and his eyes dimmed, as he introduced Yu Fu. Do you still remember him? During the Dragon Boat Festival, he sat just next to us. Yu Fu came to a sudden realization. You are young Serene, right? Yu Fu's memory was quite good. During the Dragon Boat Festival, she had not spoken with Yin Shuo, yet she could remember his appearance. Yin Shuo could not help but look upon her a little more favorably and cupped his hands. Young Miss Yu Fu has a good memory. I consider myself quite fortunate that the young miss has remembered me so easily. The last few words sounded rather jarring, causing Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu to furrow their brows in unison. Their gazes looked toward Yin Shuo with a hint of displeasure. Yu Fu was completely oblivious. Seeing him completely soaked, she figured that he had just jumped into the water to save her, thus she smiled at him and responded. I can remember everyone who has good looks. Young Serene, did you also jump into the water to save me? Gu Shubai unhappily looked at Yu Fu and did not give Yin Shuo a chance to speak up. He had good looks. She actually dared to say that Yin Shuo had good looks in front of Gu Shubai. No matter how good-looking he was, how could he compare with Gu Shubai? That's right. I also really want to know why young Serene would be here. Also, why jump into the water to save Yu Fu? Gu Shubai narrowed his bright eyes, and his usually gentle tone became strict, bringing out the might of the Gu family's military background. Yin Shuo shuddered quite a bit. After thinking for a brief moment, he replied with a smile, the days are getting hot. The scenery around the river is nice, and the breeze is cool, thus I brought my family's servants out to sail around. Who knew that we would hear someone shout that young Miss Yu Fu had fallen into the water? As a result, I jumped into the water with my servants on the chance that we might be able to help young Miss Yu Fu. Since young Miss Yu Fu is fine, that is the best outcome. Gu Shubai just looked at him quietly. The majestic aura surrounding him made it hard for people to breathe. Yin Shuo, however, was not a normal person. Facing off against this majestic aura, he stood there without a single change in his expression. The two sides faced off, and even the atmosphere fell silent. Yu Fu did not dare make a single sound, however, her nose began to itch. Unable to hold back, she let out a loud sneeze. Achoo! The dead atmosphere was instantly blown away by the sound of her sneeze. Gu Shubai glanced in her direction, his eyes filled with love and a feeling of helplessness. If that's the case, many thanks for young Sir Yin's kindness. Yu Fu must be getting cold from falling into the water. I will be bringing her back first to get some treatment. Farewell. Young Miss Yu Fu's health is most important. Please take care. Yin Shuo moved to the side with a smile, sending off the people of Marquis Gu's manor with his eyes. His gaze then became quite profound. Eldest young sir, you should also quickly go back and get changed. Be careful not to catch a cold. Yin Shuo turned around to look at him, his eyes as sharp as a hawk's. He then suddenly slapped him across the face. Gu Shubai, why did you suddenly appear here? He nearly saw through my scheme. How could I still care about catching a cold or not? That attendant dropped to his knees and began to kowtow. It was all this servant's failure for not inquiring ahead of time. This servant will not do it again. His entire forehead was covered in beads of water, and the mixture of sweat and water dripped down his face, creating a wet patch on the ground. Yin Shuo stared at him closely for quite a while before slowly looking away at the vast river. If there comes a second time, just jump into the river and don't come back. On the road back to the manor, Gu Shubai rode at the front with his 3 younger brothers riding along behind him and Yu Fu's carriage behind them. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi dejectedly hung their heads. Tonight, when Gu Shubai fought with those people, they should have stayed in the back and protected Yu Fu. It was all because they had acted violently and fought fiercely with those thugs that Yu Fu fell into the water. Gu Jiugu pressed his horse forward a few steps to ride beside Gu Shubai. Eldest brother, do you believe what Yin Shuo said? Gu Shubai was a bit shocked, turning his head slightly to look at him. What do you know? Tonight, we ran into a drunkard. It was very strange. After hearing Marquis Gu's manner brought up, he was not at all afraid. He even ordered people to come and fight us. That Yin Shuo also happened to be at the river. When he was scooped up by the soldiers that eldest brother had brought along, he was even closer than I was to Yu Fu. However, I immediately jumped into the water after Yu Fu fell in. How could he be closer than me? Gu Shubai nodded and said with understanding, I also suspect Yin Shuo, but he is Prime Minister Yin's son. The relations between generals and officials is quite strained in Eastern Ling. Without proper evidence, I cannot do anything about him. I can only order to have that drunkard's group rounded up and interrogated. Yin Shuo has always been good at winning people over. He's eloquent and has a clever way with words. Even if we continued to argue with him, there would be no results. On the contrary, it would have caused trouble for Yu Fu's health. Speaking of, it's fortunate that eldest brother appeared in such a timely fashion, otherwise, we, Gu Jiugu, as the older brother, had brought out his younger brothers and sister. For this sort of thing to have happened, he would be bearing the responsibility. Gu Shubai did not console him. He needed to be allowed to know what responsibility meant. Only like that would he feel at ease with letting him go out with their younger brothers. Father and I finished taking care of things in the army early. We returned to the manor but heard that you had gone out. Father did not even let me go inside before ordering me to bring people along to find you. I trust that you know who it is that Father is unwilling to forsake. He looked at Gu Jiugu in a tight-lipped manner, and Gu Jiugu shrank his neck in. He felt as though he had returned to when he was around 15 or 16 and dreaded making a mistake for fear of being caned by his father. Thinking of this, he could not help but look back at Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Those two were currently whispering to each other. It seemed that they were talking about how they should explain things to their father. Father punishing me is something that should be done, and it's fortunate that Yu Fu is fine. Father won't punish me too severely. Fine. Gu Shubai raised his voice, as he was very displeased with Gu Jioga's casual attitude. She was so cold that her entire body was shaking. Her little face was pale, and she even sneezed. Did you not hear that? She must have caught a cold. When I saved her, she was holding onto a rock in the water, and her chin was red from bumping against it. Who knows if any other part of her body is hurt? Will there be any scars left behind? The maidservants must inspect it carefully once we get back. You actually said that she's fine. Gu Jiogu was stunned from what he had said, then looked at him suspiciously. Eldest brother, there was a time when I accompanied you in training. I had my arm cut by a sword, and there was a puddle of blood that pooled up. At that time, why did you say that there's no harm in such a small wound and told me to just grit my teeth and deal with it? Now, when Yu Fu fell into the water and got a bit cold, why are you so nervous? Oh, did such a thing happen? Gu Shubai was originally looking forward. Hearing these words, he turned his head and looked at Gu Jiogu while feigning shock. There's nothing that can be done about that. What can be done about our Marquis Gu's manner raising sons strictly while doting on daughters? After saying this, he looked forward and spurred his horse, creating a distance between himself and Gu Jiogu. After returning to Marquis Gu's manor, Gu Huaijiang sat in the candlelit main hall. His dignified appearance was shrouded in darkness. Before the group entered the hall, they suddenly became quite hesitant. This was especially true of Gu Xiang and Gu Yi, as intuition told them that they would not be able to avoid a caning. There would be at least 20 strikes. Qian stood to the side and watched the group get closer. He also saw Gu Huaijiang with his stony expression. The atmosphere inside the hall was ominous, like a storm on the horizon. The entire building was shrouded in a cold wind. It seemed that today's affairs would not be resolved so easily. He would need to have people prepare some medicine to prevent the young sirs from suffering any lasting effects from being beaten. Greetings, father. Everyone stepped forward to perform their greetings. Only after seeing that Yu Fu was in one piece, Gu Huaijiang was finally able to let out a slight sigh of relief. Looking at his 3 sons who looked like drenched rats, he shot a glance in Gu Shubai's direction, and the latter pulled Yu Fu to sit to the side while ordering for people to pour some hot tea. Gu Jiogu was at the front, while Gu Xiang and Gu Yi shrank behind him. The 3 stood in the center of the hall and endured Gu Huaijiang's gaze. The air was filled with a feeling of dread. After a long period of time, Gu Huaijiang finally picked up his cup of tea. This was a sign that he was about to speak. Where did you go? Father, we secretly went out to play without telling you or eldest brother. As a result, our boat was rammed by a drunk man. That drunk guy also sent fighters to assault us. Second brother began fighting with them, and we also went to help. Who knew that the boat would start swaying so violently and Yu Fu would fall into the water? Gu Xiang's words flowed out smoothly and quickly. After finishing his recount, he took a deep breath. He was not truly that foolish. To wait for Gu Huaijiang to ask one question at a time, that would just make Gu Huaijiang more and more furious. On the way back, he and Gu Yi had discussed this matter. In the end, they agreed that the fine tradition of taking care of the younger brother would see him speak. After hearing him speak, Gu Yi also let out a sigh of relief. Gu Jiogu took a step forward. Father, today's matter was all Sun's fault. It was I who failed to take care of Yu Fu that caused her to fall into the water. 5th brother and 6th brother are both young. I will take responsibility for this. Gu Huaijiang put down his cup of tea and shot him a quick glance. Acknowledging your mistakes is sincere, but it's not sufficiently profound. Did you know that your biggest mistake tonight was not allowing Yu Fu to fall into the water? Yu Fu falling into the water was not it. Then what could it be? Gu Jiugu froze in place for a moment, not knowing how to respond, as Gu Huaijiang stood up from his seat. That drunk guy still dared to charge after hearing Marquis Gu's manner invoked. There's clearly something wrong with this situation, yet you actually did not think about why he dared to be so impudent. On the contrary, you only focused on fighting. Also, that In Shua, he appeared on the same stretch of river at the same time as you, yet you still dared to bring your younger brothers and sister out without investigating things clearly. Gu Jiugu dropped to his knees in shame upon hearing this. It was Sun's negligence. I will definitely make sure to have people go and investigate the surroundings in the future before bringing them out. If I ever encounter another situation like with this drunkard, I will definitely consider the safety of my younger brothers and sister before fighting. In truth, he had indeed lacked preparation before going out because all of his focus had been devoted to preparing Yu Fu's carriage. He was only thinking about making her happy. Who could have known that a disaster would nearly occur the first time that he brought her out? Since you know that you are at fault, Head General. Yu Fu suddenly leaped up from her seat and let out a stuffy shout. Everyone looked in her direction and saw that her eyes were barely able to stay open. She had quite an exhausted appearance. She fell into the water and got cold. Why is your voice so nasally? Gu Huaijiang walked over in large strides and felt her hair. Her hair and clothes were both dry. She must have already been dried off and changed clothes after being saved. It was currently early summer, and the days were hot. Falling into the water should not cause anyone to get sick. His hand then quickly moved to feel her forehead and instantly shuddered. Yu Fu was still in a daze, and her eyelids seemed to be fighting to stay open. Her little body even began to sway without her noticing. Head General, I'm really tired. I want to go back to my room and rest. You have a fever. Gu Huaijiang immediately looked toward Qian, quickly sent someone to bring an imperial physician. You must go quickly. Gu Shubai immediately stepped forward and picked Yu Fu up. Father, I will send her back to the western wing first to let Auntie Li take a look at her body. Like that, it will be more convenient for when the imperial physician arrives. Go quickly. Gu Jiugu watched him leave with Yu Fu in his arms. She was covered with Gu Shubai's cloak, which was almost dragging along the ground. Everyone followed along and headed toward the western wing. Only he alone remained stunned in place, thinking back to how Yu Fu had stayed to the side while enduring the discomfort. Was she waiting for his father to hand down a punishment to speak up? Little Yu Fu, it's good enough if you take care of yourself. Who told you to plead for my sake? He muttered to himself for a bit, then quickly ran out of the main hall to chase the others. In the western wing, Yu Fu lay in bed in a complete daze. The light blue veil covered part of her little face. Her eyes were closed, but she continued to mutter something. Who knew what she was trying to say? The imperial physician has arrived. Qi Zhou had brought in an imperial physician. It was an old man with a gray beard. Seeing that Gu Huaijiang and everyone else from the Marquis Gu manor present, he was given a shock. This lowly official greets Lord Marquis, greets, all right, there's no need for imperial physician's son to be so courteous. Go and take a look at Yu Fu first. Gu Huaijiang gestured toward the inner room, and imperial physician's son quickly picked up his medicine kit and walked inside. There, he saw a little girl laying in bed with a slightly pale face. He placed a hand on her wrist while inquiring about Yu Fu's situation. She just fell into the river and might have caught a cold. It's also possible that something else happened. Imperial physician's son, please get to the bottom of this. Please be at ease. This lowly official would not dare to be negligent. Imperial physician's son truly was worthy of being distinguished amongst the imperial physicians. He was very experienced in medicine and very quickly let go of her hand. It's not serious. The young miss did indeed catch a cold from falling into the water, and it is the cold that caused her body to become feverish. This lowly official will prescribe some medicines for the young miss to take every day. Gu Huaijiang slightly furrowed his brow upon hearing this, causing Imperial Physician Sun to lower his head in fear. Are you sure that it is just a cold? On such a hot day, how could falling into the water for just a while cause a cold? Imperial Physician Sun, you aren't deceiving this Marquis, right? His tone was filled with a murderous intent that dropped Imperial Physician Sun to his knees. Lord Marquis, have mercy. Lord Marquis, have mercy. Please listen to this lowly official's explanation. Imperial Physician Sun was a frequent visitor to Marquis Gu's manor. Whenever any of the members of the manor had any ailments, he would come to treat them. As a result, he had some understanding of Gu Huaijiang's thought process, and he endured to give an explanation. Lord Marquis might not know, as your 6 children are all sons, and they have all been training in martial arts from a young age, thus you do not understand a girl's physique. Girls are more fragile. Moreover, this young miss was pampered while growing up. How could she possibly endure the cold? If Lord Marquis does not believe it, just ask the girls in the room. This lowly official does not dare spout any lies. Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, and the others were waiting off to the side. Hearing what Imperial Physician Sun had said, they could not help but raise their heads. Sure enough, Gu Huaijiang had looked over at them with an inquisitive look to verify whether what Imperial Physician Sun had spoken the truth or not. All of them nodded their heads. Lian Zhu was the oldest of the maidservants, summoning some courage and stepping forward. Replying to Lord Marquis, what Imperial Physician Sun said was true. We servants all grew up working, but there will be times when we will get sick just from coming into contact with a bit of cold water. Moreover, young Miss fully fell into the river. Just how cold must that be? Though Aunt Li was no longer a young girl, seeing Gu Huaijiang look at her, she also nodded. Girls and boys truly were different. Moreover, the boys of other families were also not like Gu Shubai and the others, who only got sick a few times in their lives. Only now did Gu Huaijiang feel certain, and his expression became awkward. He did not have a daughter, and the manor had not had any female family members in roughly 10 years. He indeed had no concept of how fragile a girl's body could be. It was this Marquis who wrongly blamed Imperial Physician Sun. Please rise. While he spoke, Qi Zhou stepped forward and helped Imperial Physician up. The latter let out a sigh of relief and wiped away some sweat from his brow. What sort of thing is Lord Marquis saying? It was this lowly official who did not explain it clearly. Lord Marquis was worried out of love, and that is fully understandable. This lowly official will immediately write a prescription for the young miss. Saying this, he walked over to a nearby table. Lian Bai hastily walked over, laying out a piece of paper and preparing some ink. Gu Yi was the youngest and could not stop himself from secretly smiling with his head down, as his shoulders shrugged. As far back as he could remember, he had never seen Gu Huaijiang mistakenly blame someone and apologize to them. In the minds of the brothers, their father was either God or a deity. He had never made a mistake, thus it was quite entertaining to see him make this mistake. Seeing him smile, the other brothers were unable to hold back. Even Gu Hanamo, who was usually the most stoic, slightly curled up the corners of his lips. Gu Huaijiang turned around and looked around, and everyone quickly shut their mouths. Lord Marquis, please allow this lowly official to say one more thing. Imperial Physician Sun, please speak. Gu Huaijiang quietly engaged in some introspection. When it came to raising a daughter, there were many things that he did not understand. Hearing that Imperial Physician Sun wanted to say something, he was naturally quite welcoming. Girls are different from boys, and they are especially weak against the cold. If the cold takes root, in milder cases, their hands and feet will feel cold, and they will feel weak and sick. In more severe cases, it will be far more dangerous when it comes time to give birth. Gu Huaijiang took note of everything, then asked, "What medicine is Imperial Physician Sun prescribing for Yu Fu?" Just as Imperial Physician Sun was about to speak, he suddenly heard Yu Fu speak in a muffled and weak voice. Perilla leaves, schizonepida, mint, skullcap root, platycodon, and sugar. The last item was said particularly clearly. After saying this, she puckered her little lips, then continued to sleep. The room was silent, as everyone looked toward Yu Fu in surprise. As for Yu Fu, she was completely oblivious while in the middle of a beautiful dream. "Yao Lan, what did your master say?" Gu Yi asked Yao Lan, who was standing next to the bed. He had been able to hear it clearly, but he just found it unbelievable, thus he asked Yao Lan. Yao Lan looked over at the table, then stepped forward and bowed. "Lord Marquis, young miss just read out a prescription. If Imperial Physician Sun feels that it is all right, can the prescription be as young miss prescribed?" Imperial Physician Sun's hand trembled, and a dot of ink appeared on the paper. He had been practicing medicine for a few decades, and this was the first time that he had ever seen a patient prescribe something for themselves. Was this not just making fun of him? The young miss, Imperial Physician Sun suddenly stood up. Before he could say anything about being bullied, he saw the father and sons of Marquis Gu's manor look at him. He then shakily sat back down. "The prescription that the young miss said, could you please repeat it? I will write it down and think about it." Yao Lan's time following Yu Fu from a young age had not been a waste. They listened to her recite the list of medicines, then walked over to the table to take a look at the prescription written by Imperial Physician Sun. After a long period of time, it was as if he had some sort of divine realization. His eyes, which were dim from old age, suddenly lit up. Wonderful! Wonderful! Now, nobody could stop Imperial Physician Sun from standing up. Not only did he stand up, but he even circled the room a few times. Holding the prescription aloft, it was as though he was holding up a piece of gold. Wonderful! Such a good prescription, how could I have never thought of it? Wonderful, it's truly too wonderful. Just use this prescription to fetch the medicine, quickly. Imperial Physician Sun repeated the word wonderful at least another 20 times. Turning around, he finally noticed that everyone was looking at him as if he was some sort of idiot. He could not contain his joy and quickly performed a grand salute to Gu Huaijiang and the others. "Lord Marquis, please excuse me. It's just that this lowly official has never seen such a good prescription in my many decades of practicing medicine. Though the medicines in this prescription are simple, the effects are the best, and there isn't the slightest bit of conflict between them. The most important part is that it's especially suited to being taken by children. It doesn't have any negative side effects." Was it really as divine as Imperial Physician Sun made it sound? Everyone passed the prescription around to look it over, but none of them could understand what made it so brilliant. Only Gu Huaijiang remained calm. Yu Fu was able to resolve the Kunlun poison. Just how great could a prescription for a measly little cold be? "Lord Marquis, this lowly official has a presumptuous request and hope that Lord Marquis will accept it. Would it be fine to ask young Miss Yu Fu about where this prescription came from after she wakes up and who discovered it? This lowly official has practiced medicine for my entire life, and I would be fine with dying if it meant understanding it." Seeing Gu Huaijiang's expression, Gu Shubai suddenly recalled that Yu Fu had been brought back to the capital because she had resolved the issue with the Kunlun snow. It was just that Yu Fu had never made use of those abilities during her time at the manor. On the contrary, she seemed to act like a naive little girl, thus everyone forgot all about that. "Imperial Physician Sun, the question that you asked can be answered right now." "Ha! Imperial Physician's son looked at Gu Shubai in a daze. Young sir knows. Who is it? Gu Shubai softly said, it was Yu Fu herself. She is the disciple of divine Dr. Sun Qi. Coming up with this sort of prescription can't be considered much. The sky was getting dark, and Steward Qi Zhou personally sent Imperial Physician's son back to the palace while accompanied by 4 male servants. It was a result of Gu Huaijiang's uneasiness, as he said that Imperial Physician's son had suffered too much of a shock, thus it would be best to bring more people to avoid any problems. Imperial Physician's son had indeed suffered a great shock. A prescription that a 12-year-old little girl had come up with while sleeping was even better than one that a 60-year-old imperial physician could come up with. He truly wished that he could just jump into a river and just resolve all his problems by dying. Hold on. Imperial Physician's son suddenly turned his head, his eyes shining bright. This gave Qi Zhou and the others quite a fright. In the young Miss prescription, the sugar is purely for the sake of hiding the bitterness. Steward Qi, when you have the people prepare the medicine, remember to tell them to put in a little less. Young miss, it's time to take your medicine. Using the excuse of being sick to laze about in bed, Yu Fu wrapped herself up in a blanket like a caterpillar in a cocoon. She would not move for anything. Lian Bai entered with the medicine. This left Yu Fu with no other choices. Helplessly shaking her head, she shot a pleading look at Lian Zhu. Lian Zhu stepped forward. Speaking in a gentle tone, she tried to pull open the blanket cocoon. Young miss, good young miss, let's take the medicine to feel better. You won't want to stay holed up in bed. Look at how nice the weather is outside. What is so fun about being in bed? Lian Bai smiled and nodded at her, mouthing, well said. Yu Fu wavered for a moment under the blanket, then instantly wrapped the blanket around herself even tighter. But I feel bad right now and just want to stay in bed. Good older sister, could it be that I'm not allowed to act a little spoiled when feeling sick? Her voice was already quite stuffy from the cold. Now that there was a blanket muffling it further, it sounded even worse, making Lian Zhu's heart soften. Even under normal circumstances when she was not sick, all of her requests would be granted if she acted spoiled. Lian Bai stood there with the medicine, not knowing whether she should move forward or leave. If the medicine was not taken, the medicine would lose its efficacy once it got cold. It was at this moment that they suddenly heard Gui shout from the outside, "Eldest brother has arrived." Yu Fu immediately popped her head out of the blanket. On her pale little face, her large eyes were filled with horror. Why did eldest brother come so early? I still haven't brushed my hair or gotten changed. She anxiously rubbed her head. Sister Lian Zhu, quickly brush my hair. If I am seen like this by eldest brother, he will laugh at me. Sister Lian Bai, quickly go and stop him. Go quickly. Ha, I'll be going. Lian Bai walked out with a smile, but she did not think that Gu Shubai had truly come. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi liked to use Gu Shubai to scare Yu Fu. This was not the first time, yet Yu Fu believed it every single time. She lifted the bead curtain and walked out. Sure enough, she saw Gu Xiang and Gu Yi casually walk in. "Fifth young sir, sixth young sir, the young miss ordered that I come out to stop the eldest young sir. Since the presence of the eldest young sir was made up by you two, this servant will be stopping you two." Hearing Lian Bai, the two brothers began to laugh. How did she fall for it again? Ha ha ha, if eldest brother really did come, you really would not be able to stop him. Lian Bai was merely joking. It was natural that she would not truly be stopping the two, thus she smiled and bowed. This servant will go and pour some tea for you too. Little Yu Fu, have you gotten out of bed yet? Gu Yi did not even attempt to hide anything, directly walking into the room. Gu Xiang hesitated for a moment before following him in. Lian Zhu was currently tidying Yu Fu's hair while she continued to sit in bed. Yu Fu leaned against the head of the bed. Because she was a little emotional, her face was slightly red. She looked to be a little more energetic than the previous day. If Yu Fu was still unable to figure out what was happening after seeing Gu Yi's mocking look, she would truly be too stupid. She instantly gritted her teeth and fiercely glared at Gu Yi while grabbing Gu Xiang. Fifth brother, sixth brother is too mean, deceiving me again. Give him a beating for me. Gu Yi had a joyous expression and did not expect that he would be given a slap by Gu Xiang. His eyes instantly turned to the side. Very well, Gu Xiang, you have Yu Fu and have forgotten about our brotherhood. You actually really dare to hit me. You show no respect for your elders. I am your older brother, so what's wrong with hitting you? Gu Xiang squinted his eyes at him. He was completely unmoved and had a natural expression. My ass. You're only 1 hour older than me. What sort of older brother are you? Who knows, maybe they made a mistake after we were born, and father was unable to tell the difference. I might actually be the older brother. Gu Yi answered sarcastically, causing Yu Fu to giggle. Only then did the two stop arguing. You should be awake after laughing a bit. Quickly take your medicine. Yu Fu was stunned. It turned out that the two of them had deliberately started arguing for the sake of making her laugh. It was fine. The prescription was one that she had dictated. She knew what it would taste like, thus she received the medicine from Lian Zhu and downed it in one gulp. Yu Fu clicked her tongue, as a bitter taste filled her mouth causing her to furrow her brow. So bitter, this isn't the medicine that I prescribed. It was so bitter that she began jumping around with an expression that fully expressed her suffering. Lian Bai hastily handed her a piece of candied fruit. Young miss, eat this. It will reduce the bitterness. Yu Fu placed the fruit in her mouth, and its sweetness quickly filled her mouth. Like this, the bitterness was finally eased a little. Gu Yi secretly laughed. It's the prescription that you described while half asleep. You have no clue just how much Imperial Physician's son worshipped that prescription and how depressed he became upon finding out that it was you who came up with it. He said that he had practiced medicine for an entire lifetime but was not even on par with a little girl. But when he left, he told Steward Qi that the sugar was purely for the sake of adjusting the taste and to put in a little less. It's possible that Steward Qi did not add any. No wonder it was so bitter. It turned out that no sugar was added. Yu Fu frowned. That prescription is not one that I came up with. It was Master who came up with it. Back when I was in Immortals Valley, whenever I caught a cold, Master would always use this prescription. With it happening so often, I was able to remember it. No wonder, you're clearly a practitioner of poison. How could your prescriptions be better than what Imperial Physician's son could come up with? It turns out that it was the divine doctor's work. I need to quickly send someone to tell Imperial Physician's son to ensure that he doesn't feel too down about it and do something stupid. As Gu Xiang said this, he walked out of the room and gave instructions to his servant. Gu Yi was carefully watching Yu Fu. She had been hopping around earlier from the bitterness, and the brocade robes had slipped quite a bit, revealing her autumn yellow undergarments. Her hair was still slightly messy from sleeping and had not yet been tidied up. There were still tufts that were resting on her neck that fell under her collar. Do you not find the hair resting on your neck to be itchy? Gu Yi reached out a hand to pull that strand of hair out, but his hand had ended up catching a strange string. What is this? Gu Yi's finger was tangled in some red string. No matter how he pulled, he could not get free. Yu Fu looked down, and her eyes immediately grew wide. Sixth young sir, quickly let go. Lian Zhu quickly stepped forward to smack Gu Yi's hand away. She then tidied up Yufu's collar and hid the red string once more. Gu-yi did not understand why there was such a massive reaction and thought that it was because he had messed up Yufu's hair, thus she did not let him pull it out. He simply let out a bit of a sigh. "Oh right, little Yufu, why is it that you will get your hair brushed when eldest brother comes, but you don't even bother putting on any outerwear when we come? Aren't you looking down on us a little too much?" Gu Xiang re-entered the room and saw Yufu's slightly red face with Lian Zhu standing to the side with a vigilant look on her face. As for Gu Yi, that idiot was still foolishly smiling without a clue as to what was happening. What happened? Gu Xiang looked at Yufu then at Lian Zhu, however, both kept their mouths shut and did not respond. "Gu Yi, what mistaken thing have you said this time to make the two of them this mad? She is still sick. Why have you not apologized yet?" As long as Yufu was unhappy, Gu Yi had definitely done something wrong, thus Gu Xiang hastily pushed Gu Yi to apologize. "I haven't said anything wrong." Gu Yi looked at Yufu in a daze, then innocently at Gu Xiang. "I asked Yufu why she wanted to have her hair brushed when she heard that eldest brother had come, yet she doesn't even bother getting changed when seeing us. Right, there was also a strange red string on her neck, but Lian Zhu pushed me away before I could pull it." A strange red string on her neck. Gu Xiang thought for a while, then came to a sudden realization. "You shitty brat, just shut your mouth." As he said this, he grabbed the back of Gu Yi's collar and dragged him out with a look of shame on his face. "Yufu, don't worry. I will definitely tell father to cane him properly 20 times. "Aw, don't." Yufu wanted to stop him, but Gu Yi had already been dragged off by Gu Xiang. Not even the sound of his screams could be clearly heard. Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, and the others stood to the side. Their faces were red from holding it in, but they were finally unable to endure and began to laugh. The sixth young sir really is childish. Not knowing what a dudu is, he actually reached out to tug at it. I fear that he doesn't even know what he did wrong even after being dragged out by the fifth young sir. Lian Zhu covered her mouth with a handkerchief. The more she thought about it, the funnier it became. Lian Bai also laughed. This really is the result of Lord Marquis' strict teaching. The fifth young sir and sixth young sir are already 16 years old, and if this was any other house, they would already have a maidservant taking care of them. But in this home, only the second young sir is a little more romantically inclined, but even he has never gone out and stayed the night with a woman. As for the rest, they are all very proper gentlemen. Them not knowing about a girl's dudu is normal. Saying this, she looked at Yufu. "Young miss, don't be mad. The sixth young sir has an innocent disposition and did not do it intentionally." "I'm not mad." Yufu shook her small head. "I know that sixth brother didn't do it intentionally. Quickly go and take a look, make sure that fifth brother doesn't tell the head general, or sixth brother will get beaten." Lian Bai acknowledged this order and stepped outside. However, she was met by a colorful scene, as a group of noble young misses was walking toward the western wing. Looking carefully, the one at the front was Princess Danyang, dressed in her official clothes. Upon seeing Lian Bai, her round and smooth face revealed a dignified smile. "You are one of the people taking care of Sister Yufu, right? I heard that Sister Yufu's place in Marquis Gu's manor is the only one that has any maidservants. You must be her maidservant." Lian Bai was overwhelmed by this unexpected favor. This was her first time speaking with Princess Danyang, and she quickly bowed in response. This servant greets Princess Danyang and greets all of the young misses. "Our young miss happened to catch a cold and is currently recovering." "I know. That's why I brought a few young misses to come and visit Sister Yufu and to help alleviate her boredom. I have just come from visiting Lord Marquis Gu, and he has already granted us permission to come and visit." Since they had already been given permission by Gu Huaijiang, Lian Bai absolutely did not dare stop them, thus she ordered the maidservants in the yard to lead Princess Danyang's group inside. It looks like you have some urgent business. Quickly go and take care of it. We can go in on our own. Princess Danyang was always dignified and kind. Seeing that Lian Bai's movements when exiting the room, she knew that Lian Bai had something to do, thus she simply had her go and take care of those matters. Lian Bai was extremely grateful. Thank you, Princess, for your consideration. This servant will be leaving first. Young Miss, Princess Danyang has come with a group of young misses. She said that she came to visit. Lian Zhu hastily entered the room to report. Yu Fu had just laid back down after drinking her medicine. Now, she wanted to get back up, but she was pushed back down by Lian Zhu. Young Miss, don't move. I already told Princess Danyang to wait outside for a moment. I came inside to take care of young Miss hair and clothes. It won't be too late to invite them in after that. Saying this, she picked up the pale yellow hairbrush and took care of brushing Yu Fu's hair while she remained in bed, styling it into something that would be worn at home. After this, she put on a goose yellow top. She was then laid back down in bed and covered in her blanket. Behind her, a few large pillows were added to prop her up. Yu Fu watched her move and handled every matter with great care. This improved her view of Lian Zhu. Sister Lian Zhu, that's Princess Danyang, His Majesty's first daughter from his first wife. You left her waiting outside, are you not afraid? Lian Zhu bowed. Young Miss, don't blame this servant for acting on my own. Young Miss is currently sick. Regardless of whether it's the princess or anyone else, young Miss' health is most important. If Lord Marquis was here, this servant thinks that he would also be in agreement. Moreover, this servant left Yin Ling and Yin Shui outside to bring them tea and pastries. Princess Danyang has always been kind and will not be unhappy over this little bit. I rather feel that Sister Lian Zhu is quite methodical, never getting flustered and acting in haste. I admire you far too much, so how could I ever blame you? Lian Zhu warmly smiled from the bottom of her heart, then turned around and went outside to fetch Princess Danyang's group. Seeing Yu Fu's little figure lying in bed, Princess Danyang felt a bit of heartache. She quickly sat down next to the bed and inquired about her condition. As for the young misses who accompanied her here, they also found seats in the room, and the atmosphere inside became quite a bit livelier. Sister Yu Fu, I heard that you fell into the water because a drunk guy picked a fight. Where could such an unruly person with such a lack of understanding have come from, and how could they dare to be so impudent? Don't worry, I heard Brother Shubai say that the drunk guy has already been captured and interrogated. I will definitely make sure to have him voice Sister Yu Fu's frustrations. Hearing Princess Danyang speak, Yu Fu could not help but be surprised. The tone of these words made it sound as if she and Gu Shubai had become closer, while Yu Fu had become an unrelated person. Yu Fu had not yet spoken, but someone else sneered in response. Could it be that Princess Danyang has become muddled? Young Miss Yu Fu is the heir's younger sister. It's natural that he would need to get revenge for young Miss Yu Fu. What is there any need for Princess Danyang to remind him? Yu Fu had a bit of an impression of the girl who had just spoken. Wearing a set of jade green clothes, it was none other than Lu Rui, whom she had met during the Dragon Boat Festival. She had always had some complaints about Princess Danyang monopolizing Gu Shubai, and now she was able to catch her mistake. It was natural that she would be a little abrasive. Princess Danyang's expression was sluggish and slightly embarrassed, but she quickly recovered. She turned her head slightly and replied with a fitting smile, "It momentarily slipped my mind. Seeing Sister Yu Fu in bed from being sick, I lost myself. It can't be helped." Sister Danyang had good intentions. In truth, my illness is nothing serious. I've troubled everyone with coming to visit. Yu Fu spoke up to ease the tense atmosphere. The smiled at Princess Danyang. Lu Rui then hurriedly said, "Young Miss Yu Fu, there's no need to be reserved. The Marquis Manor is a lofty existence. Normally, we could not come so easily even if we wanted. It's only thanks to young Miss Yu Fu that we are able to come and visit. We were even able to see the eldest and second young sir in the front." It was clear that she was very happy. When she mentioned the eldest young sir, she held her handkerchief a little tighter, and a look of joy burst forth. It turned out that they had not come to visit her. Rather, they were coming to visit her eldest brother and second brother while merely visiting her in name only. "Right, young Miss Yu Fu, I heard that Imperial Physician's son went crazy after coming to treat your illness. He said that a 12-year-old little girl had better medical knowledge than him. What's going on with that?" Lu Rui became quite talkative when happy. Once these words came out, everyone looked at Yu Fu. When it came to her life experiences, outsiders would incessantly try to find out more. This included the girls who should be quiet and pure. Yu Fu bit her lip and was a bit hesitant. Princess Danyang spoke up for her. Sister Yu Fu said it before that she grew up in Immortals Valley and was the disciple of the deity of medicine. The medical abilities of the deity of medicine are unfathomable. If Yu Fu's medical abilities are said to be greater than those of Imperial Physician's son, that would definitely be possible. Isn't that status as the disciple of the deity of medicine just something that Lord Marquis is using to deceive people? Could it be that young Miss Yu Fu, the blood of Lord Marquis, actually went to endure the hardship of studying medicine? As if seemingly making a decision of great importance, Yu Fu raised her head and forced a smile at Lu Rui. "Sister Lu, you've misunderstood. I'm actually not the head general's daughter." Once those words came out from Yu Fu, the entire room was shocked. What did you say?" Lu Rui was so shocked that she forgot to address her as young Miss Yu Fu and simply stared at her in a surprised daze. Everyone in the room was very shocked, and even the usually dignified Princess Danyang looked at Yu Fu with her brows slightly furrowed. Yu Fu's expression did not change. Her slightly pale face had a smile that was exceedingly adorable. "I said that you have all misunderstood. I am not the daughter of the head general. I am just a child that he kindly brought back to the capital to take care of. That's Yu Fu. Learning medicine has nothing to do with the head general. He has always stayed on the path of morality and does not have any mistress or illegitimate daughters." Everyone's expressions quickly changed, as they no longer looked at Yu Fu with as much respect as when they had first arrived. A little girl from the wilderness that was not even Marquis Gu's daughter, how could she possibly be worthy of the respect of these young misses? So it was like that. Then I will be leaving first. I will be going back out front to see if the eldest young sir and the others are still there. Who knows, maybe we will end up being able to have a conversation. Lu Rui casually bowed and exited the room while rolling her eyes. She did not even glance in Yu Fu's direction. The others copied her, and the group that had entered with quite a great presence was now leaving in the same way. Although Yu Fu expected this, she now felt a little lonely. It turned out that everyone's love for her had been fake. What they liked was her connection to Lord Marquis Gu, not her as a random girl from the wilderness. "Sister Yu Fu, don't be too heartbroken. Morals are getting worse with each passing day, and human relationships are shallow and cold. There's no need for you to pay any attention to them." Yu Fu looked up, just a little surprised. Princess Danyang was still sitting there and looking at her with eyes full of kindness. Everyone else had already left. Only she was still here. "Sister Danyang doesn't think less of me for coming from the wild or that I am not a proper young miss of a marquis." Princess Danyang smiled confidently. "What young miss of a marquis? What girl from the wilderness? Either way, neither is as noble as me. Since that's the case, what is there for me to be picky about? I will play with the people I like. I don't care about their backgrounds. Though this was what she said, she did glance sideways toward the door, as she was quite disdainful of the young misses who had left. She could not help but jut her chin out with pride, but why did you need to tell them about it? Even Uncle Goo is admitting it to the people outside. Why reveal it and let those petty people belittle you? I also did not think that it would be like this. I just did not want to deceive anyone, nor did I want to exploit the head general's influence to make friends. Moreover, I could not allow his reputation to be sullied. What is this about a mistress? The head general is not that type of person. He was a dignified and high-ranking general. He could have as many wives and concubines as he wished, so what the need for a hidden mistress? In Yu Fu's mind, Gu Huaijiang was a great general and a great hero. She should not allow others to use this matter to talk about him behind his back. Princess Danyang could not help but nod in agreement. Good girl, Uncle Gu really did well to take you in. It's really rare for someone to be so caring and concerned about others. Since this is the case, take care and rest well. I will be leaving. Saying this, she stood up and left with her maidservants, quickly chasing after the other noble young misses to ensure that they did not wrap themselves around Gu Shubai. The accompanying palace maids moved quickly, following her closely. Princess, you already know that Yu Fu is not Lord Marquis Gu's daughter, yet why are you still so polite with her? Princess Danyang did not stop walking. While looking at that maid with disdain, she joyfully said, these people are too short-sighted. They only know that Yu Fu is not Marquis Gu's daughter, thus they all left to curry favor with someone else in power. However, they never thought about it more carefully. As long as Marquis Gu and his family's young sirs dote on her, what does it matter whether or not Yu Fu is related to them? The palace maid thought it over for a bit, then came to a sudden realization. Princess really is the smartest. Even if she is a maidservant in Marquis Gu's manor, as long as the eldest likes her, that is enough. Princess can use her to interact more with the eldest young sir. How could this servant have failed to think of it? I really am too stupid. Princess Danyang tapped her forehead. If even you were able to figure it out, those young misses would not have been so stupid as to leave so rudely. That group of stupid women actually wants to compete with this princess for brother Shubai. Watching Princess Danyang's parting figure, Yu Fu had some sort of feeling deep down. It was a bit of a repulsive feeling. Young miss, don't feel hurt. Don't you still have Princess Danyang? Even if those young misses won't play with young miss, there is still Princess Danyang, so there is nothing to worry about. Lian Zhu quietly consoled her and helped tuck her back in. Yu Fu seemed to be lost in thought, saying, those young misses only got close with me because of my status. Once they found out that status was fake, they no longer wanted to be close. What about Sister Danyang? She doesn't care about status. She's getting close with me because of eldest brother. Lian Zhu heard this and felt that Yu Fu's intellect was truly shocking. The more she thought about her words, the more sense they made. Princess Danyang, she, has indeed been pursuing the eldest young sir this entire time, and this is no secret in the manor. Though this is the case, as long as she has good intentions, there is no need for young miss to think about it too much. You still have not recovered from your illness, so take care to recover first. Saying this, she retreated from the room, leaving Yao Lan alone to take care of Yu Fu. Yao Lan took a look outside. Seeing that there was nobody in the outer room, she instantly revealed a look of indignation. It really makes me so mad. Are all of the girls in Eastern Ling so petty and short-sighted? Immediately after hearing that young miss is not related to Marquis Gu by blood, they turn around and refuse to acknowledge you. You really are despicable. How could they possibly know that our young Miss' true identity? Yu Fu instantly covered her mouth, no longer allowing her to continue. How many times have I said it, yet you still aren't able to remember? You aren't allowed to bring this up ever again. I don't want to cause any trouble for Marquis Gu's manor. Yao Lan grimaced, that's fine. Young Miss just doesn't need to get along with them in the future. That's all. The young sirs are better. They all treat young Miss very well. 5th young sir and 6th young sir came first thing in the morning. Thinking about it, the other young sirs will also be coming in a while, right? Then I will get some sleep first. Just wake me up when they come. As she said this, she lay back down under the blanket and went back to sleep without even getting changed. Yao Lan silently sighed. Walking outside, she found that Lian Zhu and the others were waiting outside. Lian Bai had also returned. How is the young miss? Yao Lan shook her head with a bitter look on her face. Young Miss has been by my side since childhood, and I have never seen anyone who disliked young Miss. Those people acting like that towards the young Miss is something that I am seeing for the first time. I am feeling quite dejected. Let's not go in for now and let her handle this heartache alone. The young Miss did nothing wrong and was always courteous with them. With those young misses suddenly changing their attitudes, it's inevitable that she will feel hurt. Since Yao Lan has already said this, we won't go in. With Lian Zhu also saying this, everyone was about to disperse when they suddenly heard the sound of footsteps coming from the outside. What are you all standing outside for? Yu Fu is still sick, yet none of you is taking care of her. The group looked toward the source of the voice. It turned out that Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu had come, and the one who had spoken was Gu Jiugu. He felt guilty because Yu Fu had fallen into the water. He was also very moved by how she had protected him, thus he was extremely worried about the slightest problem for Yu Fu. The corners of Gu Shubai's lips slightly twitched, as he was a little surprised. Gu Jiugu, who usually faced girls with a smile, was now speaking with a severity that had never been seen from him before. This was abnormal. This was far too abnormal. The maidservants looked at each other. In the end, it was Yu Fu's personal servant, Yao Lan, who had the most standing to step forward. Young sirs, it's not that we're slacking off. It's that young miss is feeling unhappy and did not want us to stay inside to take care of her. Feeling unhappy. Only after the two began asking further did they find out what the noble young misses from earlier had said. It was inevitable that the two would feel incensed. Yu Fu has always treated people with kindness. Who knew that others would only treat her well because of her status? Now that they know the truth, they changed their attitudes too quickly. It's hard to fault her for feeling heartbroken. Gu Jiugu looked toward Gu Shubai with his brows furrowed. How could this girl be so foolish? Even father doesn't tell others about this, yet she herself revealed it. All throughout the capital, everyone only has eyes for nobility. I fear that this sort of thing will occur even more in the days to come. Forget it. Gu Shubai looked at Yao Lan's group. Stay out here for now. We will go in and have a chat with her. That might do a bit of good. Saying this, he gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. Our young miss likes the eldest young sir the most. She will definitely be happy to see the eldest young sir. Behind them, Yin Ling quietly whispered with Yin Shui, as Gu Jiugu paused briefly then entered the room as if nothing was wrong. Yu Fu was currently laying down in bed. Hearing some movement, she did not turn her head. She just stuffily said, "Didn't I say to call me when my older brothers came? Why have you come again so soon?" After saying this, there were no other sounds of movement. Yu Fu could not help but feel that something was off. Turning around, she found that Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu were both standing in the room, and both were looking at her while laughing. Not realizing that the two of them had entered the room, her miserable expression remained on her face. This caused Gu Shubai to feel quite a bit of heartache. Yaolan said that you were feeling down, thus we came in on our own. It turned out that there's a little girl facing a wall while reflecting on her actions. There were small chairs already next to the bed, and the two casually sat down. Yu Fu immediately sat up straight, her little face bright red. That's not it. I only lay down because I was a little sleepy. Weren't eldest brother and second brother entertaining those misses out in the front? How do you have time to come here? Yu Fu forced out a smile. The earlier feelings of misery had already been suppressed to the bottom of her heart, however, this was not enough to fool the two in front of her. One of the two was 19 and the other was 20. If they could be fooled by a young child like Yu Fu, it would be a little too disappointing. The two exchanged a look. Neither planned on exposing her facade. She was unwilling to express her sadness in front of the two. Put plainly, she did not want them to worry and did not want Gu Huaijiang to worry. The Marquis Manor has never welcomed these guests in the past. They were allowed in for your sake. We simply hoped that they could help ease some of your boredom. Where is there any sense in us entertaining them? I see that they could not keep you entertained, so there's no need to let them back in. Gu Shubai's casual mention of this caused Yu Fu to feel a little bit shocked. Eldest brother definitely knew what had just happened. That's why he said that he would no longer welcome those young misses. Right, why have third brother and fourth brother not come? Yu Fu did not continue on the previous topic. Instead, she looked outside but did not see Gu Hanmo or Gu Wenqing. It's fine with third brother, but fourth brother promised me yesterday that he would come and visit me today. Yu Fu grimaced a little and lowered her head, muttering, he even said that he would bring something fun for me, take a look. What is this? As if performing a magic trick, Gu Shubai pulled out a chubby and small white dog from his broad sleeve. Holding it in his palm, it was not even the size of his hand. Wow! Yu Fu was surprised and happy. Looking at the white ball in his hand, she immediately wanted to reach out to feel it. But the little dog was truly too small. She was afraid that she would hurt it, thus her arms remained at her sides, afraid to reach out and touch it. The little white dog was very comfortable laying on Gu Shubai's palm. Sitting on its butt, it licked its paws and looked very cute. Now, Yu Fu could no longer endure, reaching out and pulling it into her arms. Your fourth brother wanted to come with us, but third brother held him back, saying that his martial arts had regressed. As such, the two began training in the backyard. He entrusted this little dog to us to give to you. Sure enough, you like it. Gu Shubai was observing Yu Fu's expression. He never thought that a little white dog could make her so happy so quickly. Gu Wenqing really understood Yu Fu's feelings. Awoo! The little dog obediently lay in Yu Fu's arms, letting out soft whimpers. Yu Fu brought her hand over to its nose, and it sniffed her for a bit. It then stuck out its pink tongue and began to lick her hand. She began to giggle, and Gu Shubai could not help but shake his head. This little girl was truly too easy to coax. Alright, you're still recovering from an illness. You can play when you are better. Gu Jiuge picked up the little dog and gestured for Yaolan to continue taking care of her. Yu Fu still wanted to continue playing but watched it get carried out. Father mentioned wanting to bring a teacher to teach you embroidery and needlework. There was also something about zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. As I see it, when you recover from this illness, it would be better if you trained in martial arts with us. With you being so frail, how can that be bearable? What? Learning martial arts? Yu Fu shrank back a little and pitifully looked at Gu Jiugu. Second brother is a bully. I am a little girl. How can I learn martial arts? I won't learn. It will definitely be full of hardships. It was clear just looking at Gu Hanamo. He was the only one in the entire manor who spent all of his time training. He trained so much that he was unable to speak well, and his expression was always cold. It was clear that learning martial arts was not a good thing. Once she voiced her thoughts, Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu began to laugh, unable to hold back. Did you think that third brother is the best at martial arts in the manor? Aside from father, the best at martial arts is eldest brother. It can be seen that even with learning martial arts, it's possible to stay elegant and graceful. As for you, it will just be for the sake of strengthening your body. Yu Fu was still a little afraid, thus she cast a pleading look at Gu Shubai. This time, Gu Shubai did not act as she had hoped. Second brother is right. Your body is truly too weak. If training in martial arts can make you stronger, father can also feel at ease. What do you think? It seemed that the two of them had discussed this beforehand. They had not come to ask her opinion in the slightest. Yu Fu angrily pouted and furrowed her brow. The head general definitely will not agree to it. I absolutely do not want to learn martial arts. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.